people like Dave Ramsey, who have obviously huge influence over people, but they do $30 million a month. And they say that you don't need debt to actually be able to grow your portfolio.
Yeah.
Then you have obviously people like you who are helping get people out of obviously principal places of residence, moving them into property so that they can actually pay that off in a very short period of time. So
that's right.
Yeah. But no, debt.
I guess the way I talk about debt is it's a necessary evil, right, for a lot of people. And the unfortunate reality is that you're going to have most of the time two types of debts, right? You're going to have bad debt and then you're going to have good debt. Everyone wants to own their own home. So if they go and buy their own home, they're going to take on bad debt. And it's bad debt because it's not tax deductible, right? So what that means is when someone's obviously doing their tax returns at the end of the year, that $60,000 of interest that they're paying, they're not going to be able to claim on that, right? And so you've got two options to obviously clear the debt that you've borrowed. And let's say they borrowed $600,000 to buy the property, right? You go to work, earn an income, pay tax, and then use whatever money's left over once all your commitments to pay down the mortgage, right? Now, when we look back 20 years ago, the average person was only borrowing 2 to 3 times their income. So you probably had a couple that was earning 60 grand a year back then, and the property only cost $200,000 probably max, right? Now we've obviously got people earning more. Let's say the average household income is 150,000, it's doubled, right? But that ratio to get into the property is like anywhere between 4 to basically 6 times, right? So back then it was really easy to go to work and do that first strategy, make the extra payments because obviously the cash flow was there. And now with what's happened with property prices going up and wages haven't gone at this obviously the same rate, people aren't able to make a lot of those extra payments. And that's not because they're good with money. It's just got to do with the salary versus the mortgage, right? And then you've essentially got option 2, which is that Dave Ramsey won't like over in the States, which is have an investment strategy that you can essentially take on debt. And within that strategy, as I see it with people that have 2 main options. So we either go for what I call a clearance strategy. So we buy an investment property. Let's say that investment property is $700,000, and we borrow 100% plus stamp duty, plus conveyancing, any other costs that are associated. We put a tenant into that property. Let's say that tenant gives us $550 per week, which is roughly $30,000 per year. And just to be conservative, let's say they get $5,000 in tax deductions because the rent doesn't cover the mortgage. And so just on that point of the rent not covering the mortgage, so what it is a lot of the time at that price point is going to cost someone probably about $500 a week out of pocket to maintain the investment property. And we've just basically talked about how a lot of people don't have any money left over. So where does that $500 a month actually come from, right? And even in principle, if you did have that $500, you take that $500 to pay off the investment loan, you're basically putting your money towards deductible debt when that $500 should be going towards the non-deductible debt, right? And so I'm not a big fan of the clearance strategy for a lot of reasons. The main thing is taking your out-of-pocket money and putting that into the investment property. But even more so beyond that, the amount of things that come within that, such as, let's say the tenants don't pay their rent. Well, all of a sudden now, you're not $500 a week out of pocket. You're actually over $1,000 a week out of pocket. You have maintenance come up on the property. Well, there goes basically another $5,000 that probably someone doesn't have, right? And I can go on probably on that, what I would call that traditional strategy that 95% of people do. It's just not very good. And then you're also banking on the pure fact that you buy for $700,000 and the property goes up to $1.4 million in the next basically 10 years. Now, as we know, sometimes that happens, but sometimes it doesn't. And what also happens in that strategy is the exorbitant amount of interest they're paying because there's no extra payments. They're essentially getting no relief there up until the time that they sell that property, pay capital gains, and obviously do the clearance, right? So I'm more kind of on option 2, which is what I call an income strategy, right? So we have to pay back what we borrowed. And so we go back to the same scenario. We use our equity and we put the tenant in the property and we get $30,000 a year plus our $5,000 in tax deductions, right? And instead of basically using that rental income to pay for the investment loan, we basically take that rental income and we use that to pay down our mortgage. And now what a lot of people say to me is, Stephen, if we take all the income from the investment property, how the hell are we going to basically pay for the investment property, right? And all that, the answer to that question just purely comes down to loan structure. And this is what a lot of what I do in business is underpinned by. And so if we go back to the scenario where, let's say we've got someone's got a debt on their property for $600,000 and the property's worth $1 million, that means they have up to $300,000 in equity. Now they only need $150,000 for the deposit and the stamp duty for the new property, which means they've got $150,000 of equity just sitting there. So what we basically do is we release that equity in form of an investment loan, not a home loan, although it's against the principal place, right? And we release that back to ourselves in cash. And then what we do is when the liabilities come up for the investment property, we use that money each month as we need it. So let's say it's $4,000 in the first month. Our loan goes from $150 down to $146, which gives us the ability to take that rental income plus the tax deductions to knock down the non-deductible debt. And so what we're doing inside that is we're getting immediate relief on the shitty debt that we actually have, right? And in the process, we've got not one, but two assets going up in value. Now, we are adding to obviously the debt of the investment property, but let me ask you a question, James. Does the rent go up each year?
Yeah.
And will the tax deductions go up each year? So what happens then inside that is, yes, we are taking on more debt, but the increase in the income from the rental largely basically offsets the extra debt that we're putting against the property, as long as you can manage it obviously correctly. And then that's a whole nother story that I won't go into, is people not maintaining their rents on investment property, which kind of drives me absolutely crazy. What you kind of find a lot of the time is in that strategy is people will start off initially, they'll pick up one property. Once both properties go up in value, they can get into a second. And a lot of the time, if we have someone with $500,000-$600,000 worth of debt, we can get that cleared off in 6 years. And what happens in 6 years' time is the most important thing. Well, they get their cash flow back because they don't have a mortgage repayment anymore. And so then they divert the rental income back into the investment properties, which relatively look after themselves. And let's say they were paying $4,000 a month, right? Well, we established an investment property at max cost $500 per week. There's another two investment properties for the same cost of what you're used to paying.
Yeah.
And that's how we go from one asset to basically 5 assets with the exact same amount of money that we're used to paying. Pretty unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. The way you're structuring a loan, I think, is one of the most important things as well. Like splitting it up at the very front and doing it like that. Because as we were saying just before, with the Australians they overestimate risk, underestimate the actual return, and they need to be able to separate clearly good debt, bad debt, and what that actually means. And I think a huge thing in this as well is the difference between, well, there's two exit strategies like you've been talking about as well. You can either also, worst case, let's say 5 years goes past, you get two investment properties at year one, you still have your principal place, you sell everything off, and then you're worried that obviously the debt of the two properties is going to be too much for the investment properties. But you can still sell those and clear them if you wanted to get rid of all your debt, and you've still got in 5 years your house is fully paid off.
Got your house fully paid off.
Plus you profit from both the investment properties as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do whatever you want with the cash flow, right? Yeah. Go on international holidays. Go buy that new car instead of being like the silly people getting leases on them. Go buy that in cash, right?
Yeah.
Your options are a plethora once you get rid of the debt on your own property, right? But that's where it all starts, and a lot of people don't essentially realize. And the thing that really frustrates me is when I go to functions and I hear people talking about property, they talk about, my property this year went up 80 grand. Fantastic. No one talks about how much interest they paid that year.
Yeah.
And that interest was probably $65,000.
Yeah.
And so you're a peanut because you've made 15 grand, but you're out there promoting to people, you've made 80 grand, which actually isn't the case. And you've just basically gone to work for the bank, as I said earlier, fundamentally. And so where the real magic happens is when you don't have debt on that property, when the property does go up by 80,000, you've actually made $80,000.
Yeah, literally.
That's where the magic happens.
And also such a compounding effect with properties that people don't see as well. When you start to have getting your first and second properties hard, very hard, but then getting your fifth, sixth, seventh way easier because basically every few years you can just refinance, pull it out and do this again and continue every investment property the same way you've done principal place of residence as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about these people that own 5, 10, 15, 20 properties, right? And when you look at what an average income is, again, let's call it could be anywhere from 150 to 300,000, right? For a household, right? We know the rent's not going to cover on basically 20 properties, right? Unless you've had that portfolio for an extremely long time. So what a lot of these guys do is they figure out what their shortfall is. And let's say their shortfall is $15,000 a month. Now, obviously, if they have 15, 20 properties, they've got millions of dollars of equity in the portfolio, right? So all they do at the start of each year, and I have these clients, is they say, Steve, I need an extra 180 grand. They use the debt from the bank to make up the shortfall. And let's say you got the 15 to 20 properties and on average, each of them are worth $1 million, right? You own 15 to $20 million worth of property. It's probably going to go up by more than 180 grand per year. But yeah, this is the thing a lot of people don't understand. We come back to the word, it's around loan structure, right? The way that we kind of utilize equity. Could they potentially get there if they've got the $300,000 income to cover the shortfall? Maybe if they're really good with their money. But why would you want to be someone that owns $15 million, $20 million of property and not living, right? Yeah. If you own that level of assets, you should be going out to dinner a couple of times a week. You should be going on international holidays. You should be helping your children get into the property market, right? This is just the way that obviously I view things. Everyone's really different, right? No person needs that amount of top line assets and wealth, right? There does come a point in time for everyone where they should enjoy their money in life, right? And the way people obviously enjoy their mony, that varies across the whole of Australia, right?
Yeah, people who want to do nothing, some people who want Lambos.
Exactly.
Before.
Exactly.
So, yeah, they can go rent them.
Yeah. Exactly.
But more about like Lending Loop specifically and how you came to this, because you've been doing first-time home buyers and home purchases a lot, and a lower volume of debt recycling and the Mortgage Freedom Accelerator program. Yeah. And then you've obviously switched and pivoted to 100% of the Mortgage Freedom Accelerator program.
Yeah.
But at the very start with first-time home buyers, you were doing loans and home purchases as well. Yeah. And that was for how many years before this?
Yeah. So I was doing that for about 3 years before I kind of pivoted to the debt recycling. So yeah, first home buyers, kind of basic refinances. And I think, everyone in their career starts somewhere, obviously, right? And I'll be really honest and say that when I look back at a lot of work that I did for a lot of people, as I stand and what I'm now doing today to people is I look at that and I'm not very happy with myself as a broker back then, right? But that's almost the whole industry, basically, James, because what I'm doing, as you know, is very, very different from everyone, right? Yeah. And so the standard thing is you get an inquiry come in, they want to buy a home for $1 million. You figure out a way to borrow them the 800,000-900,000, right? But what I came to a realization one day is giving these people the 800,000-900,000, but no one's having a conversation on how to actually help these people get this paid off, right? Getting those refinance inquiries and, oh, Steve, I've seen that rate, that's 0.5% cheaper. Can you refinance me? And yeah, refinance them and take them back to 30 years when they're already 27 years into the mortgage. And when you look at what I call the amortization calculator, and as you know, James, I do a high volume of meetings each week. 95 people out of 100 that I meet with have never seen that calculator. Yeah. All they see is the shitty calculators that basically put up on the bank's website, which is a standard repayment calculator, right?
Shows they save $100.
Exactly, but they don't show that calculator. This is what year 1 is. This is what year 2 is. And what a lot of people don't realize, it takes 19 years of paying the mortgage before you pay less in interest and more off the property. 19 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think about that, because what a usual $600,000 property is usually what, $3,500 a month, approximately. So $3,500 a month is what, $42,000 a year. So 42 takes you $800,000 to start paying off even 50% of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so crazy. I came to a point when I started to look at this calculator for myself and was like, what are we doing to these people, right? This isn't actually ethical. This isn't right. And what I kind of came back to look at is, what are the strategies that we can utilize to obviously pay down debt, right? Now, I'm quite fortunate that I have a very big property portfolio, right? This is something that I started when I was 19 years old. And most people are going to listen and watch this and what 19-year-old basically gets into property, right?
Yeah. Very small percentage.
A very small percentage, but a guy that has a father-in-law that's a financial planner. I was very, very lucky that I had that support and guidance, right? And so me and my wife in our early years, and this is off graduate incomes, mind you, like not big incomes and not without getting handed huge deposits. I mean, I've done loans, James, as you know, where I've had people buy property for $3.5 million and their parents give them $3 million. Certainly that wasn't me and my wife's starting point, right?
A bit of a different start off.
Bit of a different start. I think maybe in total across both of our kind of parents in those early years, we might have got 40 or basically 50 grand to help us out with some stamp duties and some bits and pieces, right? 100%. So obviously we're extremely grateful for that, but that's by no means created the financial position that we have today. And so where the wealth's come from is buying that first property for $350. Now that's worth $1.5 million. Buying that second property for $480. Now that's worth close to $2 million, right? And so when we came to basically get into the family home, we had assets to leverage and also something to basically sell that gave us that cash into that property. And then, so as you can imagine right now, we live in a very expensive property. We have no home debt. We have a lot of obviously investment debt, which I view as obviously great debt, right? And it's allowed me to do investments like I bought an absolute cracker in the tip of COVID, $1.6 million in 5-dock, shitty 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, completely unrenovated, 350 square meters. Now, if you recall back at that time, all the banks were saying property price is going to drop by 30% and on all this rigmarole, right? What no one talked about in that process was interest rates have gone down from 6% down to 2%. What that actually means in real terms is everyone can borrow 40% more. So how the bloody hell are property prices going to drop by 30%? Because Australian nature is we want the better home. These interest rates coming down have now allowed us to do that, right? Now, some of those people are paying the consequences today of a subsequently sold, as you're basically aware, right?
So many people in the last few years, I see this literally everywhere. They're downgrading. Everyone's having to be forced out of their mortgage that literally nearly added 50 or 100% to their monthly payment.
I know.
And they've literally had to go from like an $8,000 payment to 12, 15. They've had to sell and move down, literally like drop down houses. The $20 million house, people are moving to 15, 15 to 10, 10 to 5, 5 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1. And it just keeps going down. And they certainly pay the price for sure.
And so if I come back to that investment in 5-dock, bought that for $1.6 million, obviously used all equity, all bank money effectively, right? 5 years later now, price valuation was at $2.5 million.
Easy million.
Now, I know I'm a high basically income earner, right? And, you know, it takes a position to be able to manage an asset like that. Because when I bought it for 1.6, the rent's $800 a week. I mean, $800 a week doesn't cover a $1.6 million mortgage, James, plus the stamps effectively, right?
You're only paying, what, $750 out of your pocket a week to maintain it?
I wasn't even paying it out of my pocket per week because at that time I was starting to obviously build my business, right? I just set up an equity line for myself like everyone else does and cover the shortfall. So when you ask me details like that, there's always money there in all the accounts. I don't even pay attention to that, right? And it was helpful, obviously, for me because I knew I was going to have the increase in income. Obviously, I wanted that high negative gearing, obviously, effect, right? And this is a problem with a lot of people when it comes to property is they want to have their cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is there's no very few assets that you're going to buy that you're going to make $1 million on in 5 years. They're going to cover themselves from the start. If that was the case, James, everyone would be buying them obviously today, right? So it takes somewhat as a financial position to be able to manage investments like that. Where I come down to on how that was possible wasn't the mortgage broking business income. It was the investments that I made 17 years ago, right? That allowed me to make that happen. And this is what I talk to people about is that Rome's obviously not built in a day, right? And, you know, now that I'm obviously doing the debt recycling stuff, that is what I'm predominantly focused on. But as you can imagine, with my profile, I still get a lot of first home buyers and stuff called, right? I'll tell you about one recently, a very successful doctor in Tasmania that works for the hospitals, earns about $550,000 per year. Now, I've got no idea how the guy's 43 and how he still doesn't own a property. That's
a different story.
That's obviously a whole different story. But as you can imagine, he would have studied for many years and his income would have taken a while, obviously, to get up to that level, right?
10 years or something studying.
So he's come to me and he said, Stephen, I want to relocate to WA, want to buy this property that I've seen for about $2.1 million. He's got about a $600,000 deposit. Like, fantastic, Matt. Obviously, your income You can well and truly obviously afford it. So I can get you the loan, obviously, no problems. What I'd actually like to do before that is actually to sit down and actually show you these basically calculations, right? And so got him on the video call. First thing I brought up was the amortization calculator. And I'm like, how much extra payments do you kind of plan to make? And, you know, for him, it was maybe like a couple of $1,000s per month because he's originally from the UK, wants to go back to see family. There's other things that he wants to do with his money, right? And so Reed put his thing in there and it still showed, obviously, as you can imagine, this exorbitant amount of obviously interest. So we talk about $1.5 million of debt at 6%. What we're talking.
Yeah, $1.5 million is.
We're talking what, $85,000-$90,000 in basically interest on that.
Yeah, of just interest, because it'd be at least a six-figure payment a year.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So I said, I just want to let you know that this is what essentially we're in for. And he's like, Steve, I'm already paying $150,000 in tax, and now I'm going to be paying this in interest. Like, my income's basically going to be gone from this. Yeah. I'm like, you get it now, Matt. You're exactly right. And he obviously turned around to me and said, Stephen, what can I do?
Yeah. How crazy is it that someone also is making, like the average, I think they say in Australia now, the average individual wage is 100,000. Let's just say it's that. Whether you agree with that or not, I'm sure a lot of people would disagree, but anyway. And then you have someone who's literally making 5.5 times that, and they're still having the same issues that like structure can just change, which is obviously crazy. But
people don't understand that a lot of his income goes into the 40% tax bracket, and he's not self-employed, is he, to do any structures? He gets paid directly from the hospital. Government takes his money before it even hits his paycheck, essentially, right? And so he goes, Stephen, what? Like, there must be something that I can do here. I'm like, there is. Well, tell me, basically, Steve. I'm like, what we can do is go with your initial plan, put the $600,000 into the property. Now, he's a doctor. Banks love doctors. Do almost anything for them, right? Literally. So as a lot of people know, when you're in healthcare, you can borrow up to 95% of the value of the property. So what we do is we do a capital contribution in for $600,000. We settle on that property. We then go back and refinance up to 95% and take our money back as an investment loan. We go out and buy 3 investment properties at $700,000 each, which you can do, right? Because you've got the borrowing capacity as a doctor. Plus, we're going to get $30,000 each, plus the tax deductions, which is going to be huge for him, right? So we're talking about adding an extra probably $120,000 in income that he doesn't currently have. Set up the line of credit, which basically manages all the repayments on the investment properties. And there's your extra $120,000 payment that's going to get it paid off for that doctor in basically 7 years.
Yeah, and his net worth also probably just went from 600 grand to 4 million or more. Obviously, you need to minus the debt, but it's still a huge jump.
Property market goes up by 10%, James, each year. He's making 400,000, which is more than he gets net in his paycheck. He's earned the 550, but he's got to pay 40% tax. So we've created a strategy. Number one's going to eliminate debt, but very likely, none of us have a crystal ball, but the assets will probably go up more than his net income each year.
Yeah, because 550, 40%, 330,000 is his net income. So it literally beats it by 70 grand.
Beats it by 70 grand. Yeah. And he just when you saw basically his face, he's like, Steve, I'm so glad I jumped obviously on this video call. I'm like, I am too. So that's just an example of how you can really obviously change someone's life, and that's my sole focus point. With all the first home buyers that are now coming back into the business and they're saying they want to upgrade, before I'm writing those loans now, I'm insisting they come onto a video call, and I'm actually showing them if they want to take their current debt from 500, they want to take that up to basically $1 million, what that kind of actually looks like. And this is the thing, I'm happy to give anyone non-deductible debt, right? But you have to show me a strategy on where you can get that cleared in under 10 years. And why does it need to be cleared in under 10 years? Because that's what the calculator tells you. You essentially pay after 11 years at the 19 that we spoke before, that's when the figures flip. So that's logically how quickly we should pay off according to the actual mathematics on how a loan works, right? And we haven't even talked about in a lot of these cases, like obviously the amount of interest that we're obviously saving these people, right? It's staggering.
Yeah, because what does it usually save? What is it, 60 to 80% of the total loan value at least? You start to save like humongous amounts. Like the doctor, he would have literally saved 7 figures, multi 7 figures of interest on that. So because also when you have obviously principal place of residence paid off, your income has already accounted for the fact that you can pay that off, which also means when that's paid off, you can also, as you said, move to even paying off the investment properties faster as well. So you have 3 investment properties that are now also getting paid off way quicker. So it just compounds. That is one thing that David Ramsey does actually, looping back to him, even though he says no debt, he does say the biggest thing is cash flow is the most important thing in obviously all of these, because he says the amount, when you obviously have no debt, the amount of cash flow is 100% of what it actually is with no expense.
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah.
But as you say, James, whether people want to keep the investment assets afterwards, right, and likely sell those investment properties and break even and have their life back.
Yeah, literally.
And you're no longer working with Commonwealth Bank or Westpac. Yeah. And I'll tell you another staggering thing on kind of the banks, right, which just kind of blew my mind recently. We saw CBA post a profit was over $10 billion, right? Now, what a lot of people don't realize with that number, that was after tax that they put out there into the media. Before that was $14.5 million. They paid $4 billion basically in taxes, right, to the government.
Yeah.
And why does that figure obviously get put out there? Because the banks are basically embarrassed of the profits that they're obviously making and the money that they're also generating for their shareholders at the end of the day, right? How can one institution make that much money? It's because people don't understand bloody loan structure and they make their minimum repayments and do these silly things all the time.
I was literally about to say financial literacy in Australia I'm not saying it's bad. You link back to it when you said you obviously, when you were younger, you had your father-in-law was a financial planner. And with what you're saying with CBA as well, with how much money they make, Australian banks are the most profitable relative of every single bank in like the whole of the world. Australian banks are one of the most profitable, more even profitable than America, all these places that are like, they've got Chase and all these like literally $1 trillion banks that are backed by the biggest like hedge funds and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have, luckily enough, you probably would have ended up in the same position, but you would have jumped started by having the financial planner. Because I did very similar. When I got my first property, I didn't get, I bought actually 50% of a property that my parents owned years ago. And that was the first property I ever bought. And it was very similar age. I think it was 19 as well. And it was 50% of a property. I can't remember the exact value. I think it was like 450 grand at the time. 50% of that is the first way in. But I didn't need a deposit because there was already the 50% there.
That's right.
So,
That's right. So you're able to leverage.
Yeah, exactly. So you're able to leverage it, which was good. But again, financial literacy, just like people knowing that you can have a home, have a bit of equity, 30, 40% equity. Yeah. And you can literally turn that into 7-10 years. You can turn it into actually life-changing money with doing nothing crazy as well. Yeah. You just come with someone, obviously yourself, who has a proper strategy. You're able to actually plan it out, look at it, and basically make sure it works for the person. And also, to be fair, with who we're like, the people that we're obviously targeting with the ads and well, the people that that are coming in. Yeah. These aren't people that are all doctors making $550,000. No. They're people with household incomes of 150, 200.
They're everyday Australians that are feeling the pinch at the moment.
Literally,
right?
100%. I think everyone's feeling it as well. Obviously, we were talking about it before, not the people with obviously 10 million in the bank, but majority of Australians, especially people who would be watching and listening to this, they're feeling the fact that, interest rates are up.
Because people take on also debt that's obviously relative, obviously, to their incomes, right? Yeah. If you're earning 400,000, you're not living in Greater Western Sydney most of the time, right? Yeah. You're living on the northern beaches in Sydney,
100%.
Or you're living in in Richmond, in Melbourne, right? Yeah. So those properties are obviously a lot more expensive, right? So it doesn't matter where it goes down to the lower level of income or the higher, because the debt they're taking on is relative speaking, right?
100%.
And look at kind of one of my biggest challenges, James, that I constantly get emails into the building after I've had a meeting with someone. It's skepticism.
Yeah.
Coming back to basically your point, because they don't teach people about what debt recycling is in school. They don't speak about inflation. Speak about the difference between what a fixed and a variable rate is and what the pros and essentially cons are against them, right? Yeah. Like, talk about fixed rates for a second. I mean, anyone that goes 100% fixed on their own property is an absolute psychopath as far as I'm concerned, because they're going to limit the repayments at most of the banks 10 grand a year.
Yeah.
And as we've said, we need to make inroads, obviously, into the mortgage with a strategy. And how can they do that if you're on basically a fixed, right? Yeah. So the banks obviously love stuff like that. Yeah, and that's the reason why they'll always offer cheaper rates, obviously, on the fixed. Yeah. Because the way that interest works for them, right? You guarantee the bank's got you guaranteeing 30 years, right? And even so, what the behavior that the banks let, someone that's been on a 30-year mortgage. They're now down to 23 years. The simple purpose of the application is a refinance to save 0.5%, but they're taking the loan term from 23 years back to 30 years. So the most expensive part of basically the loan, and the banks approve those applications.
Yeah.
Like, how is that right and just for people, right? But you're going to have, 95+% of the mortgage broking industry doing that particular thing every day. And not just mortgage brokers, but also the people that are walking direct into the branches as well. I know that volume's obviously dropped with 80% of brokers now doing mortgages in Australia, right? Yeah. But the banks still have their direct channel as well, right?
Yeah.
And, and the other thing that I often come across, actually another couple of doctors that I recently met with, they were talking about, again, they've got all these investment properties with less debt on them compared to the debt they essentially have on the home, fundamentally, once again, essentially upside down. And I basically took them through a full meeting, went through the calculators and explained that to them. And at the end of the meeting, they posed back a question. They go, Stephen, what you've covered off today is actually really good, but we've had health bankers at NAB and we've got all these private banking relationships, and everyone's basically not saying the stuff that you are. Why is that? And I said, I'll tell you, it's a simple answer. If they were as good as Stephen Watson, they would be working for themselves, not working for the bank. Yeah. Stephen Watson, and he's embarrassed by it, Stephen Watson earns, yes, millions of dollars per year. Does also invest how much into marketing each month, right, as well, James? So it's all relative at the end of the day to get my message out there because I'm passionate essentially what I do. But, there were periods where, the business was, I had to put in hundreds of $1,000s each month to cover the cost because the income wasn't relative to get it to the point of where it is today of having 20 staff and obviously all the rest of it, right? And so, that person coming back to that's working at NAB, if they were Stephen Watson, they'd be working for themselves.
They're also directly incentivized to not get it. They're literally banking a client to make in profit, like the interest just based off it, $5, $6, $1 million. So it's an easy way to obviously keep them in.
How many times has the banks gone in trouble for the way that they remunerate their staff and all the things that they've done over the years?
Didn't ANZ just get fined $250 million?
I think 240 million, 250 million recently, right? Yes. Once again. And what's that for ANZ? That's not even a slap on the wrist. In relativity to their profits, right?
Well, they did $5 billion, something like that.
Yeah. And what just recently got rid of all those jobs. Overseas. CBA did the same thing. Once again, CBA back in the media again about advertising the jobs overseas in another country. Not going to say which one it is in this, right? But, a different title, but you read the job description, the exact same role as what the people do in Australia. Now I'm not against, I have offshore staff in my own business. As a business, you're there to basically generate profits at the end of the day, right? But I think where it's on a borderline is doing that in a ethical way. And there's also an unethical way, right? Yeah. And so what I'm really passionate about is having my business. And, I'm probably one of the most expensive mortgage brokers in Australia, right?
100%.
But I also think I deliver a lot more value than 99% of them out there, which justifies that income, right? And also the thing with my strategy is, if I get someone's loan paid off in 6 years, I'm not getting my trailing commissions for the rest of the 24 years. Yeah. And now what people will say to me is, Stephen, people probably wouldn't stay a customer of yours for 30 years anyway. And I'm like, that's basically a good point in most mortgage broking businesses. My churn rate, even when I was doing the first home buyers, James, has always been extremely minimal. And because the way that I've even looked after my customers, even when I was doing some of the stuff that I basically don't do today because I really disagree with it, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to get the results, then you need to come to the right people. And that knowledge obviously costs money at the end of the day, right? I've paid the consequences in my own life a few times in terms of accountants and other things where I've gone for the cheaper options. Yeah. I haven't got the tax planning. I haven't basically got the structure. And it's ended up costing me infinitely, obviously, more at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And so, what I pay, obviously, my accountant today compared to what it was 5 years ago, that cost is probably 5 times, right? But I'm getting 5 times. You know what? Not getting 5 times the service. I'm probably getting 20 times the service that I was previously because I am getting the tax planning and I'm getting all the stuff that I need to help me build my financial position. And let's say I'm paying the accountant $5,000 a month, which is $60,000 a year, right? With the level of assets that obviously I have, if they're managed correctly and taxes working in the right way, that's going to far outweigh any costs that obviously I pay to the accountant. But this is a thing that I see a lot of people constantly struggle with. And what the amazing thing comes for a lot of my clients, James, and I know this is a frustration in general with the mortgage broking industry, is as soon as that RBA announcement comes in, or, people come up to they get that email saying you've had your home loan with us for another year or what it is, but they immediately go to is to think about how do I get a better interest rate, right?
Yeah.
And it's very obviously logical, right? Where you see it with utilities and all these other things, you want to pay obviously the least amount of money possible. Do you know when the RBA comes down, James, for my clients, I literally get no one call me. And the reason for that is what my clients understand with me is, yes, interest rate is important. Stephen, we trust Stephen that we'll manage that. But when I get Stephen on the phone, because that can be hard to get on the phone at times, how does Stephen help me make the next $1 million? That's what they understand.
Yeah.
And so what do they want to speak to Stephen about? Saving $200 a month, or how Stephen helps them make their next $1 million, right? And so that's something that I'll say that I've been able to really successfully do over the last 12 months is bring people on that journey with me to understand that if we get the right investment strategy, that investment strategy will pay back on paper until they base the day that they sell more money than they generate at work.
Yeah.
Because it come back to, if they're earning $200,000 a year, they're not getting $200,000 net, are they?
No.
We have 2 properties for $700,000, and we get them to use buyers agents and go into the right markets where they make 10%. We're making $140,000 per year on the investments. And if they own their own home worth $1 million, there's an extra $100,000. There's your 240, which is probably what, on a net perspective, an extra $100,000 compared to what they're currently generating net each year.
It's double. It's literally double. Yeah. That's great. $200,000, 40%, 120,000 and 240. It's literally double.
Yeah. And so this is just the thing is, it's getting people on that journey to understand what's essentially important at the end of the day. I talk about a list of priorities with people. Number 1, it's valuation of your properties, because that dictates your equity.
Yeah.
Number 2, it's borrowing capacity.
Yep.
Can't buy investments if you don't have borrowing capacity, right? Number 3, loan structure. Yep. What banks are going to allow me to structure the way that I want to structure to make my goals happen? And then you go into interest rates and credit policy and all those other things, right? We've got to basically, your average person's not talking about in that chronological order, and that's a financial issue for a lot of people.
Yeah, because what you just said then as well, I think loan structure and your ability to either redraw, offset, things like that, people just misinterpret the impact it has. Maybe first year might not have an impact as much, but like 10 years down the road, you're going to be regretting it severely. And as you said, usually before, if you take either cheapest option, I'll quickly as well, though, with cheapest option, more expensive option as well. But you have also been ranked like top 20 brokers in Australia. So you can back up charging more than other people as well.
Exactly. It all comes down to value. I mean, we go down to the process with people where when they get the investment properties, we do something called a PAYG tax variation. Now, your average person doesn't know what that is, but it's something that's very, very valuable. What it means is when you own investment properties, instead of waiting 12 months to get your tax back, you can do a form with your accountant and give that to your employer, and you get your tax back each week or each fortnight or on the cycle that you get paid with your employer. Now, you think about that. Let's say we're getting $500 back in tax per property. You got 2 properties. That's $1,000 per month. You can put that onto your home on live time and reduce that interest. Why wait 12 months?
I guarantee no one's heard of that as well. Like there would be probably 95% of people that never.
I ask every person, do you know what a PAYG tax variation is? And they're like, is that a loophole?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a loophole of basically some source, but not in the way that you basically think it is. This is something that is legal. You're going to get that money when you do your tax return in 12 months.
Yeah, 100%.
But why wait 12 months to get your money that you're entitled to?
I think one of the second things as well, that obviously we're talking around in one of our meetings like a couple of weeks ago as well, was, I can't remember the specific name of it, but where it's basically the instant giving and proof of a payslip to a family member or your wife, spouse, etc., or husband, whoever it is, within the business as well. So you can basically instantly claim that the income is another 100, 200, 300,000 as a household as well. Because when you're self-employed, there's a lot of different ways you can work with structure, right? Now, as a self-employed person myself, our job is basically, we don't want to show taxable income. We don't want to pay taxes. Anyone that does is an idiot, right? Let's be frank, right? So when you have a self-employed business, you're going to work with your accountant within legal means to come up with the very best structure you can to give the least amount to the government, because that's your hard-earned income at the end of the day, right? And when you go for loans, that can pose you basically a problem, right? So what you can do a lot of the time is when you're self-employed, and let's say I'm a director,
And my wife is if she was to work in the business, or she's just an employee, right? Now I have my essentially wife on the books, right? Now it's at my basically discretion, as long as the company can afford it. If I want to increase for the next year her salary from $100,000 to $700,000, I can do that. It's all got to be basically above board and everything, right? But there you go, as a self-employed person, is how you basically prove out your borrowing capacity. Now, some banks will want 12 months worth of history. There's other banks that accept that within 1 month.
Yeah.
Right? And so it all comes into essentially having the right structure. Is you don't want to give anyone more debt than they can't afford, because they're not going to default, right? Yeah. And that's actually something that I'll say that I'm quite proud of. Is I've only had one person in my entire time in mortgage broking actually default on a loan. Can you take a guess at what industry they worked in and what they did for a living?
Oh,
and happened during COVID?
It'd be like, it'd be. Is it a bad industry, like gambling or something?
No, builder, right? Builder, right?
Yeah. It was in peak of COVID. There was literally like businesses every day going into liquidation.
The material costs basically went up so far and everything, right? And so I got a phone call basically from the bank, won't say which one, and hey, we need to notify you. This is at the very stages of taking this guy's property. I was also very, very sad, and he was lovely guy as well. When I felt really bad because he'd actually referred me like 3 other people that I did loans for as well. And so fundamentally, Bankwest, the first person they're going to come back at, I actually said the bank there. Said the bank there. That's okay. That's okay. Bankwest, you're out there. They will do an audit into the mortgage broker. Did the mortgage broker do anything so we can recover our money somehow, right? Yeah. So the banks will always try to get you, right? Yeah. Now, the really funny thing on that application was, let me go into first, we did nothing wrong. Bank cleared us off after 2 days with the investigation with our compliance team. The very funny thing was, when we got the report back, what they didn't mention to me in the initial phone call was, I wasn't the last person to give him money. He actually went back directly to borrow an extra $20,000 3 months after I did the loan, as what they call like a top up. He obviously needed it, for some reason, and did that application directly with the bank. So therefore, the bank's done an independent application of Stephen Watson. Now, that obviously doesn't change. Obviously, the very sad fact is that we obviously had someone that's defaulted. And I gave the guy a call and he goes, Steve, there's just literally nothing I could do to recover. These people didn't pay me. These basically suppliers put up their prices by 30%. I had a fixed basically building contract, right? And this is what I guess I always come back to. When you own a business and when you own property, you need to work off ratios. If you have $10 million in property, you need to always have at least 5 to 10% cash in the bank, $500,000 to $1 million rainy day fund. If you own a business, that number sometimes needs to be higher, because you've obviously you could have revenue drops or fluctuations or whatever it is, right? So I work off, I've always, again, they don't teach you stuff in Jewel, James. Do they talk about what ratios of cash when people own property and when they own business, what they should have in the bank? No, this is the problem with the education system that's out there.
I also don't ever think one day there was ever talk about business. There was like business studies and things like that, that's obviously, right. But it's very different when you've got business studies where you learn about and the craziest thing with a lot of topics in business in school is, and also university and things like that as well, is they talk about, they act like the biggest businesses in the world, the things that they have to worry about are what everyone does. They talk about things like SWOT analysis and all that thing and market share. And it's just like the small business that makes $100,000 a month is nothing compared to Amazon who makes $2 billion a day, who has to actually worry about market share and things like that. And they don't teach anything. They don't talk about how to run a business, payroll, pay as you go, superannuation, nothing like that. And
exactly. And I guess, to go into a bit of my kind of background, right? I worked in corporate for many years in an industry that's known as property technology, right? Short, basically known for prop tech. So what a prop tech would be is a company like realestate.com.au and essentially Domain, right? And worked in corporate for many years. Like a lot of people, got to a point where I was over the corporate politics. It was very, very successful in my last couple of roles where, I started off with a team of 5 salespeople. By the time I left, had 45, took the company in $3 million of revenue to 15, right? And I actually just quickly talk about 2 days before I resigned at the very last corporate job I had before I became self-employed. I was told that we were having a meeting and there was a number of things on the agenda. And one of those things was my remuneration within that company. This was a publicly listed company, right?
Yeah.
And second highest paid person in the company behind the CEO. And so anyway, I rocked up to the meeting and I say Stephen Watson's remuneration essentially on the agenda, right? And it was, a company secretary essentially got up and he said, I'm the company secretary and I'm the CFO and you're the head of global sales and you're earning more than me and I've got more, in his mind, corporate responsibilities than me, right? And so we need to come back and we need to adjust your commission plan. And that's, that conversation's happening while I'm sitting there within 2.5 years, $3 million to $15 million in basically revenue right now. Granted, obviously I recruited more staff, more cost and everything came into the business, right? But this obviously, as you can imagine, wasn't a job that I was doing 8 hours a day. I was got to the business to a point where effectively we expanded into the US. And I was having to wake up at 2 to 3 a.m. every single morning to run that team over there. I was then basically told, we'll bring someone else in to manage your Australian responsibilities. 2 o'clock comes every day and people are still calling me in, obviously, Australia, right? So I was effectively doing this job at 15, 16 hours a day. And now I'm not going to say that I wasn't making really good money. Obviously, if I'm just behind the CEO, you're earning good money in the business, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I came to just a point on, I don't want to be in a job where I'm being questioned on essentially what I earn and effectively have to be worried about, whether the next bonus is going to be paid and it's at someone else's discretion. So for a very long time, I thought when you talk about addressable markets, I thought I'd open a real estate office, fits in very well with my background because I worked in the property industry, right? And it's something still to this day that I won't question in the future where I go back to do it, potentially as a legacy thing. Maybe that's a bit of ego there. I'm not sure, but getting to the top in the mortgage brokerage industry and then doing it in real estate, I don't think anyone's done that, but that's maybe a mission for another day, right? Because I absolutely love property, as you know. And, where I came back to on why I deviated to open a real estate office, was really one main thing for me. And that was addressable market. So when you've got a real estate agent, they generally operate in, an area like Robina, if it's in the Gold Coast, if it's in Sydney, it's in Manly, or, it could be Mount Druitt in Western Sydney, right? And so you've got all these real estate agents in a condensed area that are all competing for the same business, right? In some areas, you can have 20, 30 real estate agents, but there's maybe only 100 basically homes coming onto the market, right? Yeah. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. They talk about how real estate agents make all this money, same as mortgage brokers. It's only the top 2-3% that make it. Yeah. I've met real estate agents that earn 70 grand a year. They literally earn more money working on the cashier at Coles or basically back in the warehouse and do some overtime, right? And you've got to remember, they're working Saturdays as well and sometimes doing inspections on Sundays. And you're not going to someone's home to value what it's worth at 2 o'clock during the day, are you? Because that person's at work. You're also working to 7, 8, 9 o'clock every single day of the week. So in my mind, if you're going to work those type of hours, you need to have a well above average income for the time you'd be sacrificing away from your own family at the end of the day. And so come back to the financial plan of my father-in-law again. I sat down with him and I said, look, I think I'm pretty close to opening this real estate office. And he goes, oh, okay. What are you hoping to get out of it? All the works and everything. And he goes, look, I don't want to tell you what to do, but if I could go back and do my time again, I would have done mortgage broking. The reason why my father-in-law says that is we all know what happened with the Royal Commission a number of years ago. So my father-in-law had a big financial planning business. He grew from the ground up. I mean, this is someone that immigrated to Australia at 21 from Italy, came here with bloody nothing, right? He did basic jobs earning bad money for the first 10 years so he could learn English before he became a financial planner. And I had 5,000 clients when he retired. And if he would have retired a year earlier, he obviously had a business that was worth millions, right? Once that Royal Commission came down, 50% of his book value was lost overnight. And so it's very, very sad what happens to the financial planning industry, which is, all those people that took, my father-in-law was lucky that when he took on debt, he paid off quickly, but they still had $1 million against as a business loan, right? But now the asset's actually worth less than basically $1 million, right? Yeah. And so all those people that obviously committed suicide and lost their homes and everything, financial plan is very, very sad at the end of the day. But I guess when my father-in-law was quite smart is he always took the money out of the financial planning business and put that into assets, obviously,
Yes.
right? And so he goes to me, why don't you consider mortgages? You know, Stephen, that everyone needs a mortgage across the whole of Australia. And this was quite at kind of the point of basically COVID coming through where a lot of the banks did require a lot of physical verification, but he actually said something to me and it's almost like my father-in-law pre-saw it, right?
Yeah.
That with the internet and where it's going, you're going to probably at one stage be able to operate this Australia-wide.
Yep.
And what accelerated that, James? What made everything go digital? What happened in the world?
COVID.
Yeah. And so when COVID basically came down, for any mortgage broker that had a brain, you go to social media and now, like, an average day for me, James, I'm talking about it. Someone in Perth just took a call before this podcast in Sydney with someone in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Next one's being someone in Gold Coast and then down in Victoria. So where that real estate agent has 2,000 homes to target, Stephen Watson has 23 million people that basically own property or whatever the figure basically is, right? It's an exorbitant number. And do most of those people have a mortgage, James? And so for me to be infinitely successful and hit my numbers, you're talking about that Stephen only needs to help 0.001 basically percent.
Yeah.
And that's still a figure of helping close to 1,000 basically families per year, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to get the business with what I do because I believe what we're doing is really good in market at the moment, where that's essentially a couple of thousand families, right?
Yeah.
But what I will tell you is also my concern is if I bring the business to a point where this becomes mainstream, who do you think is going to basically attack back at some stage?
Yeah, the banks will. Yeah.
And that's what part of the problem is basically going to be, right?
Yeah.
And banks going to be like, we don't like you, but we don't like you reducing down this interest, right? And it's whether they do something funny with the offset accounts or the interest only loans, or even as it is to do the debt recycling at the moment, we have to be very, very careful the way that we do those notes to the bank. And this is why I'm happy to give anyone basically my strategy for free, because if they think they can walk into CBA and they can execute my strategy, good freaking luck, mate.
Yeah.
Because you need to talk about the loans in a very particular way, or in a way that we may do this and we basically may do that, right? If you basically go into the bank and you say, we're going to take this loan from you and we're going to use that to pay for our investment properties, CBA ain't going to give you the loan.
Yeah.
Straight out.
The strategy of how you take the money at the start as well and split it. There's a lot of features that you need, obviously, with who you choose in your particular situation as well to be able to do it. So let's say you have some impairments of something, maybe income isn't quite high enough, or your bad credit, something like that. You have some defaults. You're going to have to visit a lot of different people to actually be able to even get that with the features that you need with your actual profile that you have.
James, there's no such thing as a vanilla application. Everyone's always got something situational, whether it's a missed payment on a credit card, whether it's maternity leave, whether it's I was working full time for this company, now I've gone casual over here, I'm earning more money. They're telling me it's a guaranteed contract, but they won't put that in writing. And a lot of banks want to see at least 6 to 12 months worth of basically history, right?
Yeah.
It's what I've learned on this deal is even when you think that you get basically the clean deals, there's no such thing as a clean deal.
Yeah.
Everyone's basically got something, right? And so that's, again, that's the power of why mortgage brokers exist, right? Because we're going to assess the market and we're going to tell you obviously what the right options are at the end of the day. And yeah, I guess just coming back to circle back to another point really quickly is when we talked about those people that were really skeptical at the end of the day about essentially what I do, right? It's very understandable, obviously, right? They're hearing about something which is so foreign to them. They don't know any of their friends that are essentially doing it. They only got their friends on the traditional basically strategy. They're on a wing, hope and a prayer, scraping by to pay their own mortgage, pay obviously the investment property, right? But as I basically say is when you step back and look at it, it's really just structure is what it comes down to. You structure correctly, you can have great outcomes in a very short time frame, which set you up for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. And with the way that also you're getting people who, again, don't have humongous incomes, you're having people who are like literally everyday Australians able to do it. There's so many beliefs that they need to break to be able to get past it as well.
Yeah.
And obviously we're spending, you're spending a lot of money that we're obviously managing right now through all ads, and I won't disclose how much it is, but it's tens and tens of thousands, and it's going to be and it's growing. Yeah, and some, exactly.
Stephen, Isabella goes, you need to top up the credit card again. You need to top up the credit card.
Yeah. Literally. It's going to be daily soon.
Yeah.
But no, the amount of interest we're obviously getting as well is crazy, because I work with Literally, so a lot of different companies in Australia, United States, even Dubai now as we've expanded, and a lot of different countries. And this is one of the craziest offers that has actually come out, because even with skepticism in the market, cost per lead, cost per acquisition, and things like that, the relative ROI that you're making relative to it is just unbelievably nuts.
It's huge, just because once people basically see the strategy plans and once they come in, they're saying that, and this is what I feel great about, even if they don't sign up as a customer of the business. You've actually taught me something today, Stephen. This meeting has actually been valuable. And to be honest, James, that's more than any paycheck or any commission or any upfront fee or anything that I charge at the end of the day, right? And to know that you've been having like a legitimate, basically, impact on someone. And you know, for me, it comes as second nature. And you know, coming back to that, I guess that debt thing really quickly as well. And again, one of my biggest challenges at the moment is with the debt recycling strategy. It's something that you have to fully commit to. And I guess what I mean by that is, if you've got the equity to do 2 properties, then you need to do 2 properties, right? But having a conversation to convince someone, James, from going from 0 investment properties, not from 1, but straight off the bat to 2, is very, very difficult. Now, you might ask a question to me, Steve, why can't they just do basically 1? Well, if we're getting $30,000 in rental income plus $5,000 in tax deductions, where we go 2, we're at 70. That means we pay off half slow effectively. And what that means is we need to add more debt onto that investment property, and they're at a greater risk to the market. With this debt recycling strategy, and I say this genuinely to people, you want to come in and out as quickly as possible so you don't have too much risk on the property market, right? And so that can be a hard message to convey to people. And I've had some people come back to me and they go, Stephen, we love the strategy. We understand the strategy, right? But you're talking about us, Steve, taking on another $1.5 million of debt. What I try to say to them is, as I said to you, we've got 2 options here. We either go to work, earn money, pay tax, do what you're doing. You're barely making the minimum repayments at the moment, right? Or release this equity, which, by the way, James, is their money, because if they sold the money, they would have obviously that money, right?
Well, it's literally tax-free as well. People, they really miss. All the money is 100% tax-free.
And tax-free, right? And tax-free. 100%. And that's the other question I ask people. How long would it take you to save $300,000? Stephen, I wouldn't even say that before the time that I die.
30 years.
Then why the freaking hell, and I was about to say effing hell, and I mean it, right? Would you let $300,000 there sit and do nothing if you know you can't save that amount of money? Money makes money. And what I say to them is this, James: does money grow on trees? Never. You know, that's a stupid thing to say to people, right? No, it doesn't, Steve. We've got a money tree basically here, though. You're just not basically accessing it, right? Now, whether we can prove, borrowing capacity and all those other things, there obviously has to be a preliminary assessment done there, James. We can get very, very creative about the way that we get these money from the banks, right? And do you want to know the beauty about the strategy? And I'll drop this basically down in this podcast right now, is once we get the money, James, we never need to refinance again. And I'll explain to you why. I'm going to give everyone the secret in this today on my strategy. There's something called a variation form with a bank, okay? What a variation form essentially means is we're playing around with the loan limits in the facilities. So let's say we only have equity for $100,000 left over to make our repayments on our investment property, right? Now, if you've got $500,000 debt on your property, that $100,000 is not going to last long enough to basically see out the strategy. You need more than that, right? Now, if we have all of our rental income come in, as we addressed on the example, that's 70 grand per year, right? We're now 70 grand ahead of the home loan. Plus, I might even be able to consolidate a car loan or get them to do a bit of budgeting, and they might save an extra $1,000 a month. And, and this is the other thing that I'll say before I talk about the variation forms is, the great thing about my strategy that I love more than anything is, one, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so what I mean by that is, when Stephen's filling up their coffers in their offset account with all this extra money, they actually feel like they can get ahead of the loan. And in turn, they look after their own money better. Because they can see the light. Oh shit, Stephen's strategy is working here. I'm actually going to start saving some money now. We actually might get this thing freaking paid off and
they
get CPA out of our life.
Right? They see it quickly as well.
They see it quickly. It's instant gratification. That's what thing with the, when you see these stupid things, and I'll post them on social media, is save $50 a week, right? I mean, $50 a week, James, at the end of 12 months, it's only $2.5 grand. What's $2.5 grand on a mortgage of 500,000. I mean, it's something, but it ain't a hell of a lot, right?
Yeah.
I'm not against people saving that $50 a week. Please save the $50 if you can, because any bit you can do is obviously important to stop paying this amount of interest to the banks, right? A variation forms. So we have a loan for $500,000. We are, let's just say, $100,000 ahead. Now, all we do is say, Mr. Bank, please drop that loan down to $400,000 and make my $100,000 that I've given you back reflect on this facility over here. So we're playing around in the same loan limit, right? We're not asking for more money. We're just recycling the money, right? So once we figure out a way to get the money, we don't need to go back to the bank in the strategy. And that's the beauty about it. And then I hope there's some people that watch this today and kind of listen to that. Again, you still got to get the loans first, is why you need to come to me.
You can't go straight there.
But yeah, if you can get the structure set up, they don't need the bank. Yeah. The only time they need to talk to the bank again, really, is when we're negotiating interest rates or when we go to sell the properties basically later on for retirement.
Yeah.
Or we get the home paid off and we ask them for more money, which we're going to ask them for more money. We're going to be pretty confident we can get it, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing that I'll say I'm quite proud of is like, touch on wood this year, my decline rate is 0%. And that's a credit to my administration team, my analysts, and even the own work that obviously I do myself. Yeah. And, it's never easy to obviously give yourself a compliment, right? But what I feel great about is that we send out these strategy documents and they're not just strategy documents. We actually get the loans obviously approved for the people, right? When I, as you know, I do huge volume, right? And so I'll talk to you about what that meant 10 years ago and what that actually means today. You did a lot of loans 10 years ago. The way the banking system worked was you'd have a really close relationship at NAB as an example, right? And NAB would say, okay, if you reach this basically quota, what we're going to do for you, Stephen, is we're going to send you to the Maldives. We're going to send you to these events and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, right? I mean, as I hope most people aware since the Royal Commission is that's highly fucking illegal. And I'm going to say that word this time, right? Yeah. That is illegal as that. And also, like, if you go back and look at I wasn't operating the industry at the time, but you look at people do that is fairly basically unethical, right? Yeah. Because that NAB may have not been the best option for them. It could have been basically Westpac, right? You've taken to NAB to line your own coffers. We should never have any financial system that's set up to line the people that are doing the work, the people that should benefit the most of the clients. So I actually like the new system today. So what I get for the volume that I do is you get called a premium broker or a key account, whatever it is across the banks, right? I've never paid too much attention to it. The great benefits that you kind of get is when you do the volumes that I do is that, yes, you will get better interest rates compared to going direct to the bank. The second thing is turnaround time. So a lot of my banks, 24 hours.
That's
and these are some highly complex applications as well. And I just had this lady, I'm not going to say her surname, but she's absolutely lovely. Hi, Kerry, if you're listening. New client that we just got through yesterday. And, this was like $2 million basically in loans for this single lady. She was on a fairly decent income. Not going to completely go into her structure, right? And, got loan approved, got it through from the bank, and they called me. And what I do straight away is I call her up and, I'll tell you actually how I do my approval calls as well. Few of the mortgage brokers might rip this off, but I'll say, James, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want first? And what do you reckon? How do you reckon people react to that initially? And do you think they go, oh, really, Steve? Like they're disappointed and stuff. So I'll say, bad news is, you're not going to hear from me too much anymore. The good news is the loan's been approved. Oh, Stephen, why did you do that to me and stuff? But this is me, right? Work in finance, we need to bloody have some fun as well with 100%. These people and build some genuine relationships, right?
I think that's what I hate to say this. In finance, I genuinely think most of the time we do consulting or we work with clients.
I know.
They miss the fact that they actually need to talk to these clients and actually build a relationship with them. They just collect an application approval and send them.
I know.
And they don't actually have any genuine relationship with the client.
And you would hate to hear this is because you look after so much marketing for me, right? But before I came into this meeting, did I receive a couple of calls off the bat that weren't your marketing, that were from my own historical business?
100%.
And so if I really basically wanted to, I could run I could just, probably invest into a referral program, run it off that at the end of the day, right?
100%.
But, the reach obviously wouldn't be what it is, right? And I've got certain goals that I want to ascertain, both in terms of monetary value and also clearing a certain amount of obviously debt for people as well. I'm quite motivated at this stage of my life by both areas, right? Yeah. I'll be completely honest. Will I be doing this when I'm 50? Probably not. I probably failed at my mission, right?
Yeah.
I come from a household which was a one single income, which was my father that owned a very, very small pharmacy. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. Now, once I basically got to high school, my mum did go back and went to TAFE and she became a disability aid, I should say. And, that certainly wasn't for the money. If, what they get paid, it's like atrocious for the work that they do with a lot of these special need kids and the impact that obviously they have on society, right? And I feel the same about a lot of the nurses, people that work in the firefighters. Like, these guys do such obviously difficult jobs. And I often look at myself and how fortunate I am money-wise. And I'm not saying that I don't help people, but,
Yeah,
when I say that, I don't say, because I thought about it for a second, I don't say lives as well, but I'd actually disagree with that. And I know some people might find that stupid when I'm saying it, but I've spoke to some people that have been pretty depressed and borderline, like a few clients I've come across where with their debt levels and being behind on things, where they felt like they wanted to neck themselves, right? Yeah. So when we talk about, I actually think I actually massively turned around some people's life. Now, whether they would or went and done that, I don't know. If they didn't meet Stephen Watson, they could have come across someone else, right? But, what I was trying to say is we're certainly not doctors. We're not doing open heart surgery, right? But if you look at it, if you're someone that's under financial pressure, you're thinking about that before you go to sleep every night.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Every day,
right?
All day.
And probably during the day as well,
100%,
right?
100%.
You're thinking, say you want to go get a coffee and you can't, there are some people that struggle to fit that in, right?
Yeah, they don't want to pay $7.50 at a coffee shop around here.
Oh my God, can you believe what coffee prices are today? Seriously, right?
It's unbelievable. I have one that's good in Gold Coast, $5.41. I remember that specifically. There's two of them that I go to, $5.41, $5.50. And coffee, this should be $3.50, $4.
I remember a few years ago, I paid for my first $5 coffee.
Yes.
And it was at Crown Towers in Melbourne.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Yeah, you got to expect that.
And when I actually saw that, I'm like, holy moly, this has actually become mainstream in like 2 years' time. And it did, James. It's scary, right?
100%. Especially COVID, the price of everything, stimulus checks, everything being
How much do you remember paying for your first coffee in your life? Where does your mind go back to?
I honestly didn't start drinking coffee until a few years ago.
Really?
Actually, yeah. But even a few years ago. I
might be wrong, but I remember paying $1 for coffee.
No, I remember paying, this might be wrong, but like $2.99. But this is only years ago.
I know.
This isn't like decades ago, years ago.
I know, man.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
but that's inflation and everything for you. And this is why if people think they can work their way out of it with their, if they're on an average income. Now, what we're talking about today isn't for the people that earn $1 million per year.
Yeah.
And if you earn $1 million per year, I expect you to have a full financial team if you have a brain. A 100%. Financial planner, two accountants.
100%.
There should be one for the business.
If
you earn $1 million per year, you own a business, right?
100%.
You have a chartered accountant and then obviously a normal accountant at the end of the day, right?
100%.
You should have your own dedicated insurance advisor and all these other things, right? Yeah, probably have your own buyer's agent they're already working with, right?
100%.
What percentage of the population is that, James?
I think over 1 million is like 0.2% or something. It's a tiny percent of Australia.
It's the tiniest percent of Australia.
Right? Yeah.
Not saying those people obviously don't exist, and congratulations to those people, right?
Yeah.
But what we're here today is talking about the masses that this affects.
Yeah.
In a very big way.
Minimum 80-90% of Australians this applies to. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you do, James, with kind of your business and the impact, because you're having a lot of impact on a lot of businesses like worldwide now, right?
Yeah, we've worked with a fair few people and currently do as well.
Yeah.
But no, the biggest, I think right now we're expanding to Dubai, which is a very interesting market. But yeah, the biggest thing we're seeing in the market at the moment, especially with the marketing side, because consulting, marketing are the biggest two avenues. The marketing side of things, a lot of prices of Facebook, media, everything's going up. People are also in Australia specifically, they actually want to do things in finance. I was saying this just before actually as well, a few hours ago, was when people start really feeling it in finance, it means that their cash has run out because people go to finance when they don't have the cash for it. So then when you see finance actually getting a massive hit, you know that there's a massive issue in the country, that people are having lower, incomes relative, because I think Australia is one of the only nations actually that we've actually gone down in household income in the last 5 years, which is tough to see, but we see it in the marketing as well. I remember refinance and industries like that back in starting of COVID, the amount that you generate leads for, I'm not joking, has 5x'd.
I know.
Like 5 or more, or more.
I know.
Or more. It's unbelievable. Because
I wish I was doing what I was doing now 5 years ago.
No.
I would have been able to
You would have, luckily with yours right now, because the relative cost that you acquire and what you're able to actually get back is really good. So you don't have to worry as much. But like on businesses that make, $3,000 a transaction, it's that difference.
Can't run at that.
You can't run
that.
because you spend now $1,000 to acquire a customer, whereas like it used to be $250, $300.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how much it's gone up. That's the biggest thing we see. That was one of the biggest reasons that we had, especially for smaller businesses, that we had the Biz Launch division, which is running ads and also when we're doing funnels for people's businesses as well and actually building that out so that they can run the marketing themselves, is because they're not paying a margin of either agency, pay per lead, or anything like that as well. Because that's able to have something where you put it in your business, you run it yourself. Because if you're charging, let's say $100 a lead, at pay per lead agencies we charge, other people charge, etc. It's crazy because like $100 a lead, if you convert, let's say 5%, 10%,
which is pretty normal.
10% is a good conversion rate, especially
100%.
these days.
100%.
Conversion rates have dropped as well.
100%.
I remember we used to have, like, we work with literally one of the largest mortgage aggregators in the whole of Australia right now.
Yeah.
And they get, I won't say the numbers, but they get thousands of leads a month. And they essentially, their conversion rate has actually been one of the only people that over the last couple of years has actually stayed the same. But it's because they've gotten better. Because they have the best process I've ever seen. They have
structure.
Exactly, structure for their side. It's not our side. Trust me, it's not our side. And we've improved in the last couple of years, and they've improved, and they've stayed the same in conversion rate, whereas everyone else relative conversion rates are down. So with them, they have an SDR team that calls the leads and basically qualifies and does all of the front end. And as soon as they're ready for an application, for a full application, they go to a mortgage broker. That's like the unbelievable best process. And for like basic refis, first time home buyers as well. And that's working unbelievably well. But I remember conversion rates back in 2022, 2023, like when I was in finance as well, when I bought into the BGA group.
Remember when I used to buy lease somewhere, I reckon I was at 15-20%.
100%. And that was what, 2 years ago, something like that?
And I was less experienced than I am today as well.
100%.
A lot less experienced.
100%. I think as well, the convolution or like the dilution of the finance industry as well. A lot of people they just ruin people. Like they go in, they'll easily just want to bank 10 grand off them and actually not help the client.
That's exactly right.
You have situations like right now in financial planning. I'm not sure if you're up to date with what's happening in financial planning at the moment, but
it's
pretty crazy.
When you talk about financial planning, and anyone asks me kind of about it, I'm going to summarize it in a very aggressive sentence. I hate financial planning. The reason why I hate financial planning, generally speaking, is because the way that it's structured doesn't benefit the consumer. I'll explain it really quickly, right? If you have a financial planner that gets you into property, they may write you up a strategy plan, right? And how much do you reckon they'll charge for that strategy plan, roughly speaking?
It's usually $4,000, $5,000.
$4,000, $5,000, right? So they customer then goes and buys the property, right? What does the financial planner make afterwards?
None.
Where's the incentivization to get them into property?
100%.
Okay. Now let's talk on the flip side. If they manage their super or they get into shares and bonds, what happens with the financial planner?
They get them ongoing with a managed portfolio.
Until this basically is solved. It's like, I just can't stomach financial planning because of it, right? And so I've seen financial planners tell people to sell properties like in Brisbane and Gold Coast, where you're from, right? And tell me what the market's done there in the last basically 5 years, James. How much does the house go for? How much does the house go for in Robina now?
Oh, like millions. Well, in the low millions.
And how much would it have sold for 5 years ago, James?
Under $1 million.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. No, I literally only have.
And so those financial planners convince those people to take their property out of the market, put into stocks and bonds and super. And how much are they upside down now? Because they just wanted to line their own pockets. I'm going to explain to everyone really quickly about financial planning, the ins and outs. The main difference between shares and property is leverage. You have $200,000, you put it into shares, goes up 20%. Let's even say 10% because it's an easier number. $20,000. We buy a property for $1 million with that 20% deposit. Property goes up by 10%. We have made $100,000 on 20%. Now the shares are roughly gone up to maybe, because you've got your initial compounding, maybe 245, 250. The property's basically gone up to more than basically 1.2. Can't compete with that.
It's exponential as well. the next year 240 goes to 260, 265, etc. And the next year it's 1.2 million
But
to
then you
1.3
can take
million.
that extra 200,000 out, James. You can flip it into the next property.
Yeah.
Now, this obviously relies on the property market obviously going up, right? But if we just talk historical, every single person that basically did that $200,000 in shares in the last 5 years under all the financial planners, well, they didn't do them a good strategy, did they?
Yeah.
If they put them into shares and bonds basically over property, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying property is basically for everyone. I mean, for me, James, I'll be really honest to everyone here. I may never buy another investment property because I already have a lot of basically assets, right?
Yeah.
And let's come back to Dave Ramsey. You get to a certain point where you don't need to take on more risk, right?
Yes.
And so if I've got millions of dollars and I've got all my property completely paid for, yes, it probably is acceptable to go in a mutual fund where I'm making 8 to 10% per year, but I've already accumulated the wealth. And so I do believe at a point for people, I'll be very clear on this, that there comes a time that you shouldn't take any more risk on, right? But for a lot of these people, James, they're not me,
Yeah.
right? And they're not my really basically wealthy clients. They need to buy those properties for $1 million that go up to $2 million so they can make that extra $1 million for their retirement. And what we're seeing all too often now within basically Australia is people retire, they still have a debt on their own home of a few $100,000.
Yeah.
They have $600,000-700,000 in super, James.
Yeah.
They go into their super to pay off the bloody property.
Yeah.
And then what are they supposed to live off?
Nothing.
They live off nothing.
Yeah.
And then what do they end up on, James? Fucking age pension.
Yeah. Which is nothing.
Which is nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually had a lady, I've got to bring her up the other day. I definitely won't bring up her name, but I felt she was really appreciative of my time after I spoke with her, which I will say she has a very interesting life story that she was, she's been a bodybuilder for like the last 30 years on the side to her normal job. And I actually looked her up on YouTube and she could probably beat me up, to be quite frank. So I wasn't too mean to her on the phone call. She, in this like Australian generational cycle, James, where, she's got a property worth $900,000, only owes 80 grand, right?
Yep.
She's in her early 50s.
Yep.
Now, what a lot of people don't realize is where you make your money is between 45 and 65, because that's when you get the equity and get the position, right? Yep. People should be doing investments into their mid 40s, early 50s, 60s. If anyone tells you you're too old, they're idiots, because that's when you have the equity and you have to you've lowered down the debt and you've got the capital and everything to deploy. A lot of people make their money in the last basically 10 years if they're smart, or they should make substantially more in that last 10 years than they made in the last basically 20 or 30 years, but essentially combined, right? 100%. And she goes to me, I go, we can probably get this 80 grand for you paid off, love, in like 12 months, right? And what we can do beyond that is build you an investment portfolio. And she didn't have that much in kind of super either. One of those silly people again. She thought she'd dip into it during COVID because the government let everyone do that. What a stupid bloody government that we have that allows ridiculous stuff like that. I'm not saying some people shouldn't have been able to access it, but the people that were able to take it out and somehow use it out on holidays and things like that is just like absolutely kind of wrong at the end of the day. So and I'll probably have a few people be angry at this, but sometimes you need to protect people from themselves, 100%. Particularly the people that aren't good with money, right? When you dangle that carrot in front of people, so it's actually the wrong thing to basically do.
They'll take it every time.
They'll take it every time.
Yeah.
They'll take it every time. And so get to the end and do it our projection where we can probably create wealth of like proper wealth. I'm talking with the super that she'd have, plus the properties and sell them all. Probably what, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Should be a fully single lady, should be a fully funded self-retiree. And that probably super strategy would probably give her more than what she actually got working, by the way, which is quite unbelievable. She agreed with all the figures and everything with me. And she goes, Stephen, if I do this, she goes, I'll be the first person in my family that won't have got a government pension.
Good achievement for the family.
But good achievement, obviously, for her, right? But sad at the same basically time, right?
100%.
And she was fearful as she went to did this that she wouldn't get the pension. She's like, but I want to get that pension. I'm like, I was about to say her name, but I'm like, darling, you don't need that pension, right? You don't need that or want that. Like this, and like I think the pension's what is it, $1,500, $1,600 a fortnight at the moment, right?
100%.
Yeah. How much does the standard rent cost even in a shitty apartment these days, James?
Oh, Australia wide, I reckon you'd be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom.
Just a 1 bedroom, the smallest, yeah.
Like 1 bedroom, I reckon.
300, 350.
I reckon you'd be pressed to find one for less than
unless you're living out
350,
of
400.
yeah. Let's just say
Yeah.
let's say it's 350 basically, right?
I reckon it's more, honestly. I think it would be, yeah.
But I mean, by the time for some of these people, it will be more. But that's 50% of the pension gone.
No, literally, you can't live properly. Yeah,
that's 50% because $700 per week, right? So that's 50% gone.
Yeah.
And then what is, even if you do groceries really cheap, what does that cost?
150.
I mean, if they lived on the thing, you probably, I don't know, if it was tuna, beans, and rice and all the essentials, you maybe get it down to maybe 60 or 70.
Yep.
But then you got utilities, internet, like everyone wants to watch a bit of Netflix, right? Like, come on, at the end of the day, petrol.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have a car, you have to pay rego.
Yes. Yeah.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Home and contents insurance as well. We haven't talked about private health insurance that everyone's supposed to need as well.
No. A couple $100 a month.
Like, and so I started breaking this down from like, you won't be able to afford basically any of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's older, and sometimes I'll change my tonality and speak to her. I'm like trying to be darling to really, you know, hit it to where that I care with her genuinely at the end of the day, right? And so she's come on now, thankfully.
Yeah.
They're the people like that I really love helping, James. Essentially what I do is these people that have limited financial, basically literacy, right? Well, I know she didn't come across me or come across someone similar to me. She's going on that age pension.
Yeah, 100%.
And as I said, what my mission is to try help you. And I'll be clear, I'm not your financial planner. I'm not your accountant. I'm a mortgage broker that specializes in loan structuring, right? I'm going to create you basically a structure. And if you want referrals to an accountant or financial planner, I'd be happy to provide them. And you probably should go to basically see those people, right? I said, the mission here is only one mission. It's basically to make sure you don't end up on an age pension.
Yeah.
With the initial mission clearing at 80 grand, but what's 80 grand on a home, basically, James? It's worth 900 grand.
Yeah.
You know, she's not struggling to make repayments or kind of anything at the moment, right?
100%.
But yeah, and even if she only basically did, you know, one property and I got her to be really good with her money, we'll probably still be finished in like 12 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's unbelievable, like, the difference that people can have of, you know, in their lives. Like for me, obviously I had my father-in-law there to guide me into my first property at 19 and teach me about finance and investing. And what she's basically surrounded with is all of her friends and aunts and uncles and even her own parents basically on the pension, right? So hard for some people to get out of that, right? And then when you combine to the fact that they don't address the stuff they should based in the education system, right? It's like the whole system is basically failing so many of these people out there, right? Which is really, really sad.
I think Australia doesn't value our education in general as well, like just relatively in general, because the only reason you know how to be a mortgage broker or I know how to do what I do is educate. Like it's a skill that you've acquired.
Yeah, it's right.
And again, there's obviously huge stigma around tall poppy syndrome and things like that in terms of finance. So people don't like the financial space because they, you know, there's a huge Australian stigma, which happens all the time. Like people just, you start making a few dollars and everyone somehow is just after you for no reason. And it's just, you're doing normal, like, it's not like you're Jeff Bezos or anything and people just come after you.
And like on that point, like I come, I'm half Australian, half Maltese. My wife's Italian. So as you probably can imagine, very, very tight-knit family, right?
Yeah.
And I was actually talking about two of my colleagues that work for me in the office and we're talking about our relationships with our in-laws actually. And, I mean, my in-laws, they call me son. And I call them mum and dad. Not obviously there's the Italian versions. Mama and papa, obviously, right? So we're obviously super close. Like I would do anything that I would do for my own parents for them, and they treat me like a son back in return, right? What with the other people, what I basically saw, and they come from slightly different nationalities and stuff, is that they would like never do what I do in terms of like going to the shopping center, getting an extra salami and like giving it to like my mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
And they certainly don't call them like refer to them as a son or anything, right? So it just shows you obviously culture, but even within my own very tight-knit family, something that's been really challenging for me, James, is there is basically a few people in there that look at me and my wife, unfortunately, and they're jealous of essentially what we have at the end of the day, right?
100%.
What a lot of you people, and I'm going to talk out to the audience as well, don't realize sometimes is like to get to where I've got to, James, at different points, everything's been sacrificed.
Yeah.
Like it could have gone another way is what I'm trying to say to people
100%.
here, right?
Yeah, you could easily be on the streets as where you are today.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I've taken some risk.
Yeah.
Some high basically risk.
Yeah.
I mean, not to go into my whole life story, but I was in a basically situation where the finance business that I own now was previously initially owned under another entity. And that entity basically provided leads in to help me get the finance business started, right? And unfortunately, that basically that entity went out into business without going into all the details. In order to save the business, 2 weeks before Christmas, and like 2 weeks after my new daughter was born, like so she's only like 2 weeks old, right? It's come up with like $500,000 and $80,000 in legal costs to win it, right? I mean, if I wasn't really good with my money and me and my wife hadn't done all the right things and some of the investment stuff we've made, not many people that can come up with that type of cash in basically a couple of weeks, right?
And you wouldn't be here.
But that was just the beginning, James.
Yeah.
The revenue drops. The leads were obviously cut up overnight, which is obviously how we came to obviously meet each other. And you've been a great, a great supporter, a great help to my business. I really appreciate your friendship, kind of genuinely. And, I mean, you know, there were months basically there, James, where on top of outlaying the $500,000 to keep everyone in the business and to get leads back going, because this is a trailing effect, the way that finance works for everyone out there, right? We settle a loan. The bank doesn't pay us for how long on average, James?
30, 45 days.
Some up to 90 days, right? And so you've got to be able to maintain with that cash and everything to obviously come in, right? So no, I had a month where like lost $200,000.
Yeah.
I talk about feeling sick and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so now we're at a point where we're starting to come close to $1 million freaking obviously outlay, right?
Yeah.
This is like out of our like family cash. And this is what I say to people. People often give me the credit when I win the awards and these things, right? My wife, Isabella, I mean, she allowed me to basically take these risks and do these decisions, because any person that has basically a partner, it should never be. And I hear people and I kind of challenge clients on it sometimes when they talk about kind of like my money, when it's like actually the family's obviously money, right? There's something obviously, but there's something behind that. I think it's a culture. I think it's a bit of a culture thing.
It's 100% culture. It's
culture
100%
people,
culture.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this business is basically owned in the exact same way as my wife at the end of the day, compared to obviously me, right? And so, we're now at the point where we're basically printing, so to speak, right? Which some of that printing is just to get the money back that we initially outlaid, Chase, by the way. But I'm not going to say we're not doing really well, right? But I mean, it could have, not easily come across you, or one thing could have gone wrong, and we're basically in a position where basically Steve is out of business, or Steve's earning a significantly reduced income, and it could have taken him 6 or 7 years to basically get that money back, right?
Yeah.
And so this is what just a lot of people don't realize is often the people that have positions like mine, you take a lot of risk. I mean, even the sheer fact to buy the property at 19 years old, like I had no idea what I was entering into there. Like when I got walked into the branch, like with my father-in-law, right? And honestly, like, I think when I went for that loan at 19, I didn't know, well, I think they asked me, do you want variable or fixed? And I didn't know what that meant, James. When I was 19, by the way, because I hadn't been exposed to, social media, internet wasn't as big back then, essentially, right? Just give us a loan, like whatever works, essentially. This is what a lot of the first home buyers do and everything, right? You know, my father-in-law's told me I've got to buy this property. Like, can you borrow some money and kind of make it happen at the end of the day? And I'd love to see Australia change eventually, and in a sense that we can really celebrate when people do, are successful. There was, did you see the high-profile real estate agent recently, James, that got under a lot of strife in Sydney?
No,
pretty much Australia's biggest real estate agent. Yeah, and effectively, underquoting. What real estate agent doesn't do it, basically, firstly, right? And so they've gone and they've temporarily suspended this real estate agent, and he's under investigation. And this is someone that me and my wife, over my years in the real estate industry, been out to dinner with his partner, and they're great people, honestly say that, right? You know, whether or not allegations are founded or not founded, as I'll say, neither way on that. But if they're if they're really going to pursue it, they should be talking to 95% of real estate agents out there, right? Because every property gets quoted at 700 and sells for 800 or 900,000, right? And so that's just effectively the way the real estate agent's done. But it's very common in Australia, what they've done is they've gone after the juggernaut basically first, right? Of course. So obviously send a message to obviously the rest, that obviously at the end of the day, there's so many people out there doing the wrong thing, but it's really gripes me that we always want to raise people up initially, and then we want to bring them basically down as fast as possible. And it's a very common thing. I think you'll agree with me in Australia, and you refer to it as tall poppy syndrome, right? Part of the reason why I'll tell everyone why I've been so successful is because I've always wanted to know how other people have been successful instead of being jealous of them. Yeah. So when I was at my first corporate company, and I'll name it out there, shout out to carsales.com.au. obviously really big business, right?
Yeah,
I used to work under they had a real estate division back in 2009 called Home Sales, which was a small real estate website they acquired. And that was my first job. I think it was and you mongrels back then, 28 grand a year in the call center, right?
Yeah.
And,
Good old days.
But after I haven't gone into my complete background, but I was school when I was in year 11, and I worked in kitchens for a number of years. So that was like my first proper job. I was like, mum and dad are finally proud of me. Woohoo!
Yeah. In the corporate world.
Exactly. And putting on mum and dad are taking me by a suit and polishing my shiny new shoes and all the rest of it. And I thought I was top shit walking in there at 28 grand. To be quite frank with you.
To be fair, it wouldn't have also, relative to house price and everything like we were talking about before, it wouldn't have been as bad.
I think it was pretty low, James, back then.
Oh, yeah, no, 2009. It was pretty low.
It was pretty low back then. And, I've become really good at understanding when people say things. And I remember one thing the guy said to me during, when he called and offered me the job, and he goes, I just want to reconfirm, you know that the salary is $28,000 a year. And knowing how he said that to me now, I know I could have gone and got more, basically, James, because he knew how cheap he was basically getting me for. And I don't remember just answering. I'm like, oh, mate, are you serious? Like, yeah, I'll take it.
I'll get the job.
Can I come in tomorrow? Like, right, start the job? Seriously? I'm like, mum and dad are going to be so bloody happy here. And so, anyway, I started there, and that was a huge company. Like, oh my God, like the amount of skills and stuff that I learned there. But unfortunately, when I started there, I was like the first administration person that like hired in the real estate business. So there was like the general manager and 2 IT people and me sitting there. And then, they did bring in shortly after one other basically phone salesperson who wasn't very good. We'll get to that basically in a second. And so anyway, I went in there and I realized that this is a big business, but I'm in this small constrained thing. And so what I'd do is, I'd get in really early in the morning and I'd leave really late at night. And the reason for that is all the executives would get basically in early. And what I'd do is I'd see them in the elevator or them walk by and I'd be like, hey, such and such, basically, how you going? And I made myself to be known, right? Now, some people call that butt kissing, whatever it is at the end of the day, right? But for me, it was a thirst to basically want to acquire knowledge out of these people. Because I realized at a young age that knowledge is power, right? And so effectively, after a period of time when they used to see me, or if I saw them walk over to the kitchen, I'd go over and basically go to the kitchen myself, be like, oh, how you going and what division do you look after? I'd be really interested to tell you a bit what you do. And I came across one of the guys. I'm not sure, I know he won't mind me shouting out because he's been somewhat supporting my journey, which is Sean Chamberlain. He's one of the directors at Car Sales.
Yes.
He ran one of the very successful high-performing teams, like what you do, James, in terms of like at agency level. So the big dealerships that spend millions of dollars a year, right? I found it so fascinating. And I've seen a few of you guys, and I love to learn. I'm in this like space, and I've got no one around me, and I really want to. It's like, you can come into our meetings every Monday if you like, and you can just sit at the back and basically take notes and be a fly on the wall. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's probably the best meeting to be in of the whole week.
Like what you want. That's like what you basically want. And so I used to do the same thing with some of the really good IT guys and the marketing guys. And whenever I'd see my boss going to a meeting for something, I'm like, oh, do you want me to come and take notes for you? Right? And so a part of getting in early as well was always getting my work done really quickly. So it would come to like 2-3 o'clock. I'd done everything that asked me to do, and I'd done it well as well, right? And that's one thing I'll say, regardless, because I think everyone makes some mistakes in their younger age, and like, granted, I've done some silly things and made some bad decisions, but when I was always at work, I always applied myself, right? Yeah. From a day dot, and I think I got that mentality from my dad that owned the pharmacy. Yeah. Get up at 7, don't leave the shop till 7, even working weekends. I knew what work ethic, and also working in those kitchens for a couple of years as well. Oh my God, like, I'm not very big, right, James? You can fit me inside some of those pots, right? When I used to be in there scrubbing them, right? And so it came to basically a point where I just kept going to him every day. I'm like, I've done my work. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, can you do anything else? I'm like, mate, I've literally basically done anything. Can I help you with anything? He's like, oh, what do you think of sales? And I'm like, I've never really done it before, mate. But I served popcorn behind the candy bar. Of course, does that count? Yeah. That was my very first job that I had, right?
Yeah.
Only job I've been fired for. We're not going to go into that in this
don't need
podcast.
to.
Giving away free tickets. I was pretty naughty there. Some kids at school, somehow they called it fraud when a kid's 15 years old. What an overreaction, right? And yeah, that was quite, I will go back into that just 1 second. That was quite funny because it was Stephen come up to the office urgently and my mum, my dad were waiting there for me.
Jeez, okay.
Oh, God.
So you're in trouble.
I was in trouble. But even my parents walked out and goes, that should have just been a warning. That was just a really big overreaction. I think back the tickets were like $4 or $5 at that time or something. Yeah. Right, James. And I'd done it wasn't like it was a repeated thing. I'd done it like once, and it was my own staff tickets that I basically paid for as well. So I technically wasn't, they shouldn't have got a discount and I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, not to digress. And so he goes, you can do what such and such is doing. Why don't you try basically calling up a few agents and getting them to put their properties on the website? Back at that time, the website didn't cost anything. It was all about gathering content up to the platform. So you called them up, asked them to connect to their CRM. CRM's quite early in those days, but it was being adopted by the real estate industry, and it pushed all the properties up to the real estate essentially website, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess and he gave me a script. And so I think that was on a Thursday. And so I ended up doing more sales in that afternoon. And because I attended all those other meetings and I was learning skills and all this stuff, than what that guy had done. And I think it was maybe 3 weeks into the month, so to speak, more in that afternoon than that guy basically done for the whole month. And so I didn't know his results and stuff at the time, right? That's why I'm getting to that now. And so I walk in the next morning and the general manager's waiting for me there. And he goes, Stephen, with me. And then I see him leading me into basically the head honcho of basically the area. I'm thinking, fucking hell, Stephen's fired again. Mum and Dad are going to kill me. They're getting back. And he was sitting there with a pretty serious look on his face as well. And anyway, I walk down, they go, I'll take a seat. We need to speak with you first thing basically this morning. And before I was going to jump, they go, just wait on. So you were on the phones yesterday afternoon. I'm thinking, what have I said to one of these agents to sign them up? I've said something I shouldn't hear. I just know I've done it. And they go, did you basically know this is what you've done in comparison? Your results were amazing yesterday. All of a sudden, I'm chirped up there, right? I'm the shit, so to speak. And basically starting from today, you no longer work in customer service. You're basically going into full-time sales, and that's when my sales journey basically commenced. Forward on that, I was there for another 4 years. I got it to over 200,000 properties on the platform, free listed. Yep. In the following few years, I took it into commercialization, built out the revenue model. By the way, we're talking I'm only in my early 20s doing this stuff, right? Yeah. And so it was pretty obviously good for my age. And I'd taken myself immediately. Sorry, everyone probably wants to know 28 grand salary. I think it was the 55. Woohoo! I finally got went a good jump for the base, essentially, right? And then, I went 55 to 100 and obviously I was some bigger figures, right? But I fully took it into commercialization, created the revenue model, went out on the own, was on planes every week. 1 week I was doing Sunshine Coast in Queensland. The next thing, basically Gold Coast. And that was back in the days, James, where there weren't digital contracts. You'd actually take a briefcase with you. You'd open up a presentation. You would have to sign. I'd pre-fill the contracts, James, as an assumption. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd do that. Was one of my tricks, right? And I'd go, if you want to basically go ahead, I've actually already pre-filled this for you. And you see their look sometimes, basically, right? Like this cheeky little, because I was young, right? I was young. And what a lot of them used to say to me is, and these are the smart guys, the people that come back to talk about that don't basically have tall poppy, right? Steve, you know the reason why I'm only going to sign up with you today is because you remind me of me when I was your age.
That's one.
I love your hunger. I see myself in you. I want to actually support you, basically, right?
100%. That's one of the biggest things that I think everyone does look down, and not down, but they see the people who are like them, and they appreciate it so much.
Yeah. And I let them know I've actually I've come on a flight here from Melbourne today up here. I want your business, basically, 100%. Right? Now, do you think real estate agents are very good at paying their invoices on time, James?
Oh, real estate agents? I'm assuming no.
Now, it was a whole different story when we got to 6 months down the line on when I had to call these people to ask them why they paid their invoices. Yeah. and it's funny because the real estate business was quite small. That was, you never want friction in sales. So I don't know if it's the same in your business, but do you ever call people to chase up invoices in your business, or will you get someone else to do that?
It's usually you try have someone else in the business.
That's right. That's right. And I try to come back. I'm like, guys, this isn't good sales. That's not how you do it in the car business. I'm like, you need to get other people calling. Oh, no, Stephen, you guys are a small business. You went out to sell these. Stephen, he's been gone for 6 months and he hasn't even made one payment. I'm like, oh, no, seriously, man. I had to call them up. I'm like, remember how much you like me? Yeah. I'm like, I've been paid commission and stuff, like on, what you've done. And so anyway, that was just a challenge. And so after about 6 months, it was Stephen, here's the direct debit form to get signed as well. They won't let any of my customers go on invoice anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, legitimate contracts though.
No, of course, 100%.
Yeah, but I think also the thing was that in relativity, that portal they had at that time in competition to some of the major competitors, I'm not going to name who they obviously are, the results we were delivering were nowhere near that, obviously, are the others, right?
Yeah. But yeah, with the real estate, you're saying that pre-signed contracts weren't paying invoices, so you need the direct debit form.
Yeah, so it was all to direct debit after that. But yeah, to come back to the main point, digress there, I know a little bit, but it was always a thirst, obviously, for knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It came to me the same when I wanted to improve the finance business.
Yeah.
What it was about within the finance business was getting it to a point where I could provide, obviously, real value to people, right? Yeah. And we talked about my fees, obviously, a little bit earlier and how I'm probably one of the more premium brokers out there that obviously charge on fees, right? But if you actually break down the value that obviously I offer people, and as a result of what I offer people, it actually, if I did it on a standard model, it would mean that I would earn an exorbitant less income. So I'm going to explain to you, obviously, right? So say I do a refinance for someone, they've got their initial loan of $500,000, I get paid on that like any other mortgage broker, right? When I release, say, the $300,000 to $400,000 in equity out of the property, my clients aren't immediately using that money. And so there's something called net of offset, which is effectively the bank only pays you on funds used.
Yeah.
So which basically means my commission is basically 40% less on what it essentially should be, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other way that we get paid, and this is for everyone, this is a beauty about having a successful mortgage broking business, something called trailing commissions, okay? Now, what a trailing commission is a small monthly maintenance fee that you get from the bank to look after your clients. The ironic thing about that is it's called a small monthly maintenance fee for how many brokers maintain people and do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like most mortgage brokers think they're entitled to get that money and they don't offer the service, which is another massive gripe that obviously I have, right? Yeah. But if I get that mortgage paid off in 6, 7 years, 5 years or less, Stephen doesn't get his monthly trailing commission anymore. Stephen's not getting paid trailing commissions against the loans that are fully offset, although I've initiated those loans and I've given them to them essentially, right? And so when you look at kind of like my kind of model, what I'll end up kind of charging people usually because I obviously raise it up against the investment loans, so it's fully tax deductible, so I get 30% back, which a lot of the clients obviously like, right? So I'm very smart in how I structure it. Works out to be about $80 to $100 against the investment properties.
Yeah.
And by the way, my clients don't pay for those investment properties until their own home is actually paid off essentially first.
Yeah.
So all I do is I just work my fee into essentially the loan structure. And I charge no one any upfront basically fees because I'm not a believer in it. I don't want to give someone a massive bill for my services if I obviously can't deliver. That's obviously unethical. That puts them in even a worse position at the end of the day. And also the reality of a lot of people is for what obviously my fees, right? That a lot of people don't have that type of cash obviously laying around up front. It took me a long way to obviously construct it. And I've mentioned this a few times. I don't know if you pull it out on the spot, but with what I'm doing at the moment, call it some of the non-legitimate inquiries that I get, who's booking in to speak with me a lot at the moment? Do you recall?
The exact kinds of people. Do you mean the type? Do you mean like
not
they're
talking
professionals?
About normal shooters. Yeah, other professionals, but what type of professionals?
Mortgage brokers. Yeah.
Right? Other mortgage brokers into my diary. And
because they know that the front end marketing of it, the strategy as well. That's one thing I was going to touch on just before as well, is the strategy on the front end, because the trust in a product that's so good is so much lower. And the sophistication of the people, they have to have a home, they have to have dual income and things like that to actually do this effectively, because their level of market sophistication is higher. The actual front end of the people coming in is going to be the higher range people. It'll be your mortgage brokers, lawyers, doctors, all those kinds of people who are attracted to this. Because also when you have, and how you have to kind of not speak to people, but like the marketing and the front end marketing, as there's a complex offer that's more and more complex. Obviously, the level of sophistication of the actual consumer is usually higher.
Yeah.
And then you have to account for that in the marketing and start there. Whereas anyone can kind of understand, get a loan for your car.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, it's much easier to get.
Use the first home guarantee to buy a home, right?
Exactly.
So I had this mortgage broker recently, obviously not going to call him out.
Don't call him out on here. Yeah.
I can call out a few of you guys, honestly.
Yeah.
Call out a few of you guys. And that really validates to me that I'll just say firstly about what I'm basically doing, because the average mortgage broker doesn't even know how my strategy works.
Which to me, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
That's crazy.
In my
your profession.
Profession, basically, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a meeting with this guy, and to his actually credit, probably one of the mortgage brokers that I've come across that actually has some assets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he actually spoke about his legitimate assets too, which was a thing. So had a meeting with him, kind of went through the structure, everything like that. And then all of a sudden, like 2 days later, I see this guy on Facebook. You see, like the exact same guy that I bloody met with. And he's like doing these ads about if I hear one more mortgage broker talk about tax reduction strategies, or he was doing debt recycling, but he was talking about like bagging out these ones that sell you off the plan properties, all these different things. And he's like, I've got a strategy that will really obviously save you, right? So he was trying to do, and he's been I ended up finding out later on, we ended up meeting face to face for lunch. Actually, it's a really funny story.
Okay.
And asked me for a job too. He may be coming on soon, I'm not sure.
Wow.
But he's been trying to do this for years. But there's one element of basically my process that he's never known how to get with the banks, and essentially how to essentially master, right?
And can we hold on that? Can we go back? Can you say again what he did on Facebook? That one in the story. Just.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I didn't want to stop you because you're in a good point.
No, that's okay.
Perfect.
And from what point?
Just from when you're talking about what he would do on Facebook.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when he was on Facebook, he was talking about all these strategies that weren't good strategies, about tax reduction strategies and tax for cash, and I don't know, it was absolutely
off the plan properties.
Off the plan properties. And he's talking about 1 minute he's talking about people that have a rented Lamborghini, and then key in there like Ferraris, all crazy basically guy, good talker and everything. It got my attention, but it was the guy that I basically met with. Couldn't believe it. I'm like, this guy's bloody mortgage broker, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is really interesting, this guy. And so what I got, it's a bit of, my wife has a saying, right? If you come after Stephen, you come after the family.
Yeah, of course.
And so my wife, Isabella, everyone, that's my wife, Isabella. She's like, nah, this guy's wasted like 45 minutes of your time, because like time is obviously money, right? Time's obviously valuable. She's just really annoyed with this guy that
It's also secret shopping as well.
Well, I'd much prefer, and any mortgage broker out there, if you guys want to give me a call, mortgage brokers see this, you want to know basically how this works. I'm probably one of the most generous people when it comes down to giving time, because how I got myself to where I am today is other people giving me their time, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to one guy in the mortgage broking industry that runs his great business in his own right in Melbourne, which is Damien Roylance, right? When I first came into the industry, I considered joining him. He has a great business entourage down in Melbourne. And I've called him at many times throughout my time on things around administration teams and structures. And it's what you guys, brokers that aren't where you want to be, don't realize is that you'll actually find that the people are successful actually aren't afraid to actually give their time and actually help you, because that's been my encounter in the corporate world and all these different types, right? Successful people love seeing that next hungry people as we come along. So thanks to obviously Damien for all his support to my business and all the mentoring he's given me kind of over the time frame on a lot of annoying phone calls. And that's very much the thing. If I want an answer to something, James, I'll keep calling people and I'll chase them down until I get that answer. It's very much wide into my personality.
100%.
So coming back to this guy, Isabella puts through an inquiry
on his ad.
And gets him basically into a meeting. And don't want to can him basically down too much, but he the one thing I've learned when it comes to particularly online leads, and like, what is a mortgage broker? Mortgage broker is obviously a salesperson in some obviously respects, right? We've got a product and we've got a service, going to be transparent. And when it came to asking questions like, what's your fee structure? And and other basically elements of the strategy, I don't go through that stuff on a first meeting, right? The message that basically sends to a consumer is I can't basically trust you. Like what's there to hide at the end of the day, right? And so I listened to him do that meeting. He had some basically good elements like this guy could be pretty good with some refinements. And so anyway, I'd obviously had a legitimate meeting with this guy and issued him out a document request. The guy had the audacity to send the documents back into the office, some of them, right? He sent through a spreadsheet with all the properties and all the rest of it. And by that point, I already knew that because he obviously wanted to see the full plan and everything, right? Because part of my strategy is I'll give you out the plan completely free, only charge your fees at the end, right, James?
Yeah.
And so by that point, obviously, he wasn't getting the full plan, that's for sure. And so I'd sat on it, and for a day, I was wondering how I'm going to deal with basically this guy and how I should approach it, right? Isabel just call him out outright and give it to him, right? Which is very much can be in my nature. And so I'm actually out with one of my brokers. Very rare that I actually do this during the day, but he had something going on in his personal life and he wanted to go for a walk. He was at my house that day and we went into the park. And as I'm walking with him in the park, this basically number calls me. And I don't, because he wasn't yet a client, I hadn't saved him into my phone. And he called me and he goes, it's such and such. And I go, oh, hey, mate, how are you? And he goes, have you got a couple of minutes to have a quick chat with me? I go, yeah, sure. I've got your document there at the moment. I just thought I'd play it out. Really want to see what he said. He goes, look, I was actually dishonest with you. I'm actually a mortgage broker. And he goes, I went about this all the wrong way. Just once, firstly, goes, I love you, man.
Yeah.
And he goes to me, God, you've been trying to do, I've tried to master this and do it, but you've actually cracked it on doing it. And I've been at this for like over 3 years. And this guy was like serious, by the way, too. Like he had some assets and stuff. I said, this guy actually hired actuaries. And if people don't know what an actuary is, just a mathematician, and software engineers to building basically out a spreadsheet. Like he'd spent a couple of $100,000 trying to come up with these formulas, right? And he goes, he goes, and in particular, Steve, not only the strategy, but how you basically talked about to get the fee and how you basically structured that into the loan. He goes, mate, you've done it. He goes, you're solving the everyday problem for basically Australians. You're able to earn basically the income out of it because a lot of people basically don't know that mortgage brokers, I think it's in like 10 years, haven't had an increase on commission rates. So, like in everyone's job, how they have inflation and everything, mortgage brokers don't. Do you know what the banks actually say, James? What our pay increase is?
What?
Property prices gone up in value, which means loans are bigger. That's why. And, I kind of get it. Yeah, loan sides basically have increased, right? Yeah. But it's not even a point basically on inflation. Yeah, and then when we've also got something called clawback, just so everybody knows as well, which is they leave you within 12 months. You have to give 100% of the money back to the bank. Within 12 months to 24 months, it's 50%. And then once they leave you, you also lose the trailing commissions, which are justified to bring you over a period of time to earn the income that you essentially should be, right? And so it goes, you've just kind of cracked it. And I said, nah, man, look, I really appreciate it. I said, look, I knew. Do you remember that phone call you had with the physio? He goes, is that the angry physio, Isabella? Because, mate, she nailed him basically on the call. She was like asking him every question under the sun. And I mean, if you want to know who could be as good as me, honestly, everyone listen here, is my wife, Isabella. Because she hears me at home on the phone all day long doing my meetings. So you want to ask her about debt recycling, she'll tell you all about it, right?
She literally 12 hours a day.
She's actually on maternity leave at the moment, my wife, and she goes back on my birthday on the 3rd of November, if you can believe the day she goes back to work. Doesn't love her husband very much, right?
Of course.
No, she loves me a lot. But I'm constantly trying to convince her. I'm like, come on, we can change people's lives and everything here. But no, she went to Sydney University. She works in rehabilitation at hospitals. She loves helping people in what she does, right? And this is the thing, it's not all about money, basically, right? As I'm sure everyone can imagine, my wife doesn't need to work. I put us in a position where that doesn't need to happen, but she really is passionate about contributing to society, right? Which I love about her. Obviously implicitly, but it always goes without saying is sometimes what I make in a day, on a 2 days she's going to go back to work, is what she'd earn in a whole year of basically going in there for two days. So it really obviously is a passion thing that obviously I support with her. And initially I had to kind of get my head around it a little bit because obviously I look at things every day from a mathematical and a financial sense, right? Sometimes you do need to, pull yourself back. And so I gave him some critiquing. I'm like, look, this is what I didn't like about kind of your pitch and you couldn't quite explain this and everything, right? And he goes, oh man, He goes, would you go out for lunch with me? I said, sure, mate. There's no problem. So we caught up a couple of weekends ago in Cronulla. We had a couple of cocktails together, had basically a nice lunch. And he's actually off overseas at the moment for a couple of weeks, taking a holiday with his family. And he may come back and essentially join me, right? And the reason Isabella goes, I can't believe that you're entertaining to potentially bring this guy on and blah, blah. Isabella, he gets the mission. He gets basically the strategy and with a bit of basically refinement for him to actually know what he's talking about, right? Because he understands it in principle, the ingredients. Yeah. And when he talks about his spreadsheet with actuaries, he hasn't seen my documentation. I build a spreadsheet. So I'm highly complex. But I'll go on to say this, I spend a lot of money putting those spreadsheets together. But AI has just changed everything. Hey,
100%.
I put that spreadsheet into ChatGPT and I'm like, I want to do this and I want to do this. And I spent 4 hours using ChatGPT, right, James? And the spreadsheet was 10 times better than it was before. And it's after paying people like him exorbitant amounts of money to get these formulas right, because I'm certainly, I understand finance, but some of ththese calculations for the tax deductions and the capital gains tax and to link into the ATO and stuff, even though we don't give accounting advice, but we put them in obviously.
Yeah.
Well, you need to obviously account for it, obviously, in some way, and you obviously put it in an asterisk as highly basically complicated, right? Just AI, unbelievable what that's been able to do for my business in the last kind of 6 months on particularly transforming a lot of the documentation, even some of the scripts and stuff that we use from sending out automated emails from our administration team. Yeah. It just butters everything up. And as you know, James, it just happens at a click of a fingers within sometimes seconds.
Literally 5 seconds, all done.
How are you using AI for your own business at the moment?
I would hate to say the biggest one is just day-to-day mundane tasks.
Yeah.
Email summaries.
Yeah.
So literally emails and then separately summaries. So for example, whenever we'll have a meeting, it's recorded via Fathom, which is an AI video recorder.
Sends me the meeting notes afterwards. 100%. Unbelievable.
And the notes are unbelievable. I literally just go into ChatGPT every meeting that I ever have and I just say, give me either a post-meeting email or a post-email task list.
Yeah.
And I just copy the transcript into it and it gives you everything you need to do. It's
no need to take notes anymore in a meeting, is it?
No, literally, because you know what the funniest thing, the other day when we went on the meeting and we were on the phone.
Yeah.
I went to go to Fathom to get it and it wasn't there. And I was like, I couldn't remember anything. I was like, what happened?
That one that we did over the phone, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
But you're doing some pretty cool shit with your marketing in terms of AI too, in terms of our automated text messages that go out. You should tell people about that really quickly.
Yeah. So that's basically most AI softwares can link ChatGPT into it and basically just wrapper it. So we have the CRM, obviously, for yourself, basically input a specific table that pulls either years, income, current equity, everything like that, and puts it into a custom message.
We're sending out text messages right now to people after the inquiry and saying, we can pay your property in approximately 7 years, right?
Yeah, it's
based
the
exact equity, based on equity and income.
It's the exact formula fully
amazing.
Put in. Yeah, because that was obviously the table that yourself, Leon, worked on, right? Yeah.
Took some time, but
100%. But it's accurate, so it's good. And
super accurate.
It can be used
every time I go into a meeting. I can basically prove out a strategy on it.
You can literally use the new lead text on it. Yeah. No, 100%.
Exactly.
I think as well with our ads, production, UGC and things like that is crazy. I've built an internal AI bot that literally I just named AI James. And it's literally every meeting, every formula of everything I've ever done inside of it. And you just load it up and use that to write things out. And then you have it constantly, obviously, feedback all of the best performing things. So for example, we have, let's say, the best performing hooks that we have that either you do or the actors do or whatever for all the ads. And that is constantly used to refine all of the next scripts and things like that. And that's why you can just consistently just pump out top quality things, because
I know
you could have been able to do it. And I was doing it for years without AI, obviously.
Of course.
But it just takes 10 times the amount of time. It's unbelievable. So I think
it's I went back and rebuilt some of our administration process. And I mean, James, in 4 hours, I'd taken it from a 6 to a 9 just using AI.
Yeah.
Typically speaking, James, I would have to pay someone for maybe 4 weeks worth of their time to probably get it to what I got it to with essentially AI, right?
100%. And you did literally in an afternoon. It's all done.
Just an afternoon on Sunday, right? Yeah. So, and I think AI is changing the world. And I think, with open banking and everything in finance, right? it's only kind of become more prevalent. I mean, as mortgage brokers, when we can assess an application, as you can imagine, we can work in the grey area, right?
Yeah.
Grey areas are going to be like it's already coming to an end. Like I can tell you now with open banking, you say like you try to declare an income and you're not getting basically X here. These banks have got these systems now where without even your authorization, they can go look at your bank account in Commonwealth Bank.
Yeah.
Want to try rip off the ATO? Think ATO is not getting a data export on everything?
They've got bots that they're going to start like roaming all of your stuff. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
This is the world that we're in now.
Yeah, it's moving quick as well. It's unbelievable. Like think
Really
about
quick.
only a year ago, like 1 year ago, there was none of any of this crazy stuff now. It's good though. You just got to leverage as much as you can. Obviously, there's so many debates of the mortgage broker debate where they're like, oh, brokers are going to exist and all these things. And of course, I just think it's going to be improved efficiencies. It's just going to be, once again, just like most things in the economy now, where the smallest percentage of people have the most money. It will just be the smallest people of the smallest amount of businesses have the most clients. They do everything, and everyone else is left.
What industry do you reckon is more disruption right in this very second? Mortgage broking or marketing?
Oh, disruption.
I reckon it's got to be marketing.
Then mortgage broking, 100%. At this second,
no, I reckon it's marketing.
No, that's what I said. Yeah. At this second,
more at this second, I reckon
100%. Right now,
because you can, like create some of these like PDFs through some of these systems and stuff, and you used to have to hire a person and wait a week to get that brochure back or whatever it is, man. Like
ads, all these things that you can just design in 30 seconds now,
Yeah.
and instead of it being, having to test the best headlines and things like that. It's literally 100% marketing right now. I think at least for the next couple of years, it will be marketing, because I think the biggest thing with ChatGPT that consulting has taken away is an answer that you now also maybe not even trust a consultant that you paid them 10, 20 grand or whatever. You can now just ask ChatGPT. Like, I think ChatGPT's probably wiped billions in consulting away.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I think that's actually 100%. happened. I've got no data. No data verified. It's just my feeling on my own experience using it. I'm like, this stuff is so bloody powerful, right?
100%.
So bloody powerful.
Yeah, but luckily, obviously, as always, it's redistributing the money somewhere. So then now, if you want a custom bot for your mortgage broker, or you want the custom SMS.
That's right.
Like, you'll go to someone that makes sure you can have a custom AI SMS, and you'll do all these things. So it always comes around. It just, once again, the problem is it's new industries with AI, they emerge as we're getting further and further into obviously, well, it's current day now, so you can't tell what's going to happen in 2 years, but it's accelerating exponentially faster. And it will just get to a point where when things like AI agents and things like that start coming out,
yeah,
like when you can literally have, for example, someone on your screen talk to someone, or maybe not even talk to someone, but like they just send you docs and it just takes the documents, uploads.
Have we seen the AI people over the phone? Like people are using like for call outs and stuff.
We've got it internally.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know. It's
had one the other day. I'm Charlotte, AI from such and such.
Yes.
And she wanted me to start having a conversation with her. Now I was just about to go on to meet, and I hanged up, but I was actually, if I didn't, I probably would have gone through it and just seen what it was.
See what it was, 100%.
Yeah.
AI acceptance is increasing as well.
Yeah.
It's going up dramatically because obviously now they've seen it for a bit. They use it in their day-to-day. Like most people, I think there's some crazy number. It's like 25 or 30% of all people use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I think it's 10% of all search, or maybe higher, 12% of all search.
Yeah.
Is through all search, the whole world is through ChatGPT now. Like of anything, how to cook, how to set up a podcast studio, how to do anything. It's all through these new AI platforms. Yeah.
One thing that I just wanted to kind of finish off on was so obviously we talked a lot today about obviously the debt recycling strategy for us, right? Is kind of one area where kind of I've shaped the business to be extremely different compared to some of our limited few competitors in market. As I say, some of them, they're doing similarities, but it's nowhere near the full strategy that I've created. And that's the property side of things, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this landscape quickly.
Yeah.
So if you go to a decent buyer's agent should cost anywhere between, at a low end, $15,000 to $25,000, right? Now, these guys out there, I'm not going to name them today. You guys are lucky that I'm feeling in a generous mood. These scam artists.
Yeah.
That you come in and they say, James, you only pay us $2,000 basically up front. And what we're going to do is we're going to find you some land. And we're also going to organize the construction for you afterwards, right? Now, how long of a process would you imagine that is, James, as a consumer?
12 months.
Well, more, right? Because the land has to get registered. And a lot of the time, the land's not registered, right? So you basically buy the land, have to wait 12 months for it to get registered. Sometimes it can be, land registering's been really bad nationwide. We're seeing some land registering take 3 years. Australian government, get your act together. Because all these people have to pay the land loans the whole time. And do you want to know anything about land loans, James?
Yeah.
Non-tax deductible because the property's not generating an income.
Yeah.
You can only claim tax back once you get income from the asset.
Yeah.
So they're giving them this land, which sometimes takes 2 years to get registered, and then a minimum another 12 months of construction if they've got their basically shit together, right?
150.
So we're going to manage that whole process for you, James, for basically $2,000. When I say that to you, does that ring alarm bells for you?
Yeah.
But for the average person, it doesn't. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to break down to people how this shit actually works and how people are getting scammed every day by these investment companies. And so most of the time, guys, if they're asking you to come to an investment seminar, it's a scam, like a big one, right? So what happens is, let's say the land's $300,000, which is about right for kind of land, okay?
Yep.
So what happens is, these investment companies need to make more than $2,000 to basically make a margin, or they need to basically be doing thousands and thousands a year, but no one does that basically volume, right? And so where the money comes from is once they sell on the land, that person that sold you the land gets a commission. And once the construction is complete, or once the construction starts, they get a commission on that as well.
Yeah.
Now, these commissions can range about $20,000 plus each. So these guys, just so you guys know, these guys aren't making $2,000. A lot of the time they're making $50,000 basically, right? And James, who pays that bill ultimately at the end of the day?
The consumer.
And where does it get reflected? On the
loan.
Purchase price, right? The purchase price on the property.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't have paid $300 for that land. You should pay $250.
Yep.
But because all these white envelopes and yellow envelopes had to go under the table, and so what ends up happening is you'd expect in 3 years, right, that the property's worth more. And you should also make a profit on if you've done the development most of the time as well, right?
Profit. Yeah.
A lot of the time they're selling them into shitty locations that are over basically priced and, you know, as I say, marking up the land and the build effectively, right? And do the valuations for these people afterwards. It's less than what the property's worth.
Yeah.
And you also got stamp duty on the land too, which they're getting them to borrow that in there as well.
Yeah.
And they're also using their conveyancers.
Of course.
Their people to go out to do the building and basically pest inspections. God knows how much they get paid extra.
Yeah.
From some of the things that I've seen on kind of maintenance reports and stuff, when people have gone and got their own independent people after the fact, and they very much like prey on the people. And we had this one lady recently, and she came to me like literally, James, in basically kind of, she was crying before she basically came into the meeting. She came across me and she's like, Steve, I want to speak to you about this. And the poor lady, she's in such a good place. She only had a $300,000 on her $300,000 mortgage over in WA. Only paid about $550 for the property, but you know the market the last 5 years, property's worth $1.5 million now, so she's made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they sold her not one, but 2 properties at the same time.
Yeah.
And so one of them basically just been completed, and she's just obviously got the revalue process and what I talk about. And she's like, Stephen, this is like what's happened. They've sold me all these depreciation benefits and such and such. And, you know, Stephen, like the market's gone up. Like, I don't understand like what's happened. I'm like, being scammed.
Yeah.
She goes, that's what I thought. She goes, tell me how it works. So I basically break it down. She goes, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
What do I do?
They made 6 figures on it.
Yeah. What do I do? I'm like, what do you think? What do you think what do you reckon I would tell her to do in that situation? Immediately cut her losses.
Yeah.
Cut her losses.
Try and sell
immediately.
Because they've already.
And as I said to her, I'm going to tell you basically, but I want you to come to it first. What have you and your husband discussed basically together? She goes, we need to get out of this quick, don't we?
Yeah.
I said, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I go, you've already got your answer, you've spoken to me today. Now, in terms of creating a proper ethical investment strategy, Stephen can obviously help you with that, right? It's actually funny, I remembered it because she actually sent her documents back in this morning.
Yeah.
And I won't forget her name because she's got a very common Maltese name.
Yeah.
It's the same as my mum's brother's wife. Yeah, my auntie. And so, one thing that we do here at Lending Loot, which is very, very different, is we don't get involved on the property side or control anyone whatsoever. So what we do is we are finance specialists. We specialize in the loan structure.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to ask me a person to go to that can help you with that buying process, that is a trusted professional, a lot of my clients use, I can introduce you to that person, right? But they're not charging you $2,000. are charging anywhere between, probably as a middle range, I'd say about 20, right?
Yeah.
But you know exactly what you're paying for, and you're getting them to go out there and work towards the brief that we kind of jointly agree on together. Ultimately, as I say with everything, we don't tell anyone what to do. We give recommendations and education here, right?
100%.
Like I had a guy recently, I'm going to give you another example really quick, come in and you can always tell when someone comes into a meeting, they're quite standoffish, right? I said, really appreciate you, I won't say his name, but I'll call him James, same as yours, coming in for the inquiry. And you submitted down all these details. I wouldn't mind just making sure I've got everything right. And so one thing I oftenly ask them to start off with is if they obviously live in the property or is it an investment property, because sometimes people come in with an investment property and the strategy is obviously not right for them, because still help them with wealth creation though, right? But sometimes they might have only put their own property down, but they also own a couple of investment properties. So I said to him, you're living in that property, fantastic. That's the loan. That can I just get the property address? Because, you know, some people are overzealous their properties, right, James? They say it's worth $1 million, but it's worth $700,000. And that $300,000 difference in equity could lead me to a whole different point on the meeting. And he goes, oh, why do you need that information? And I'm like, what? Like, this is me, right? Like, I'm just straight up with I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I need to make sure what you've told me is basically correct here.
Yeah.
So, because obviously the strategy might be different depending on the level of equity that you have. And he goes, I'm happy to give that to you, but before we go into that, can you just tell me a bit about yourself and your company and what you've basically done in the past? And then before I was about to kind of answer it for him and kind of bring myself back, I thought, you know what, maybe he just needs a bit of assurance. Maybe he's been burnt in the past. Some people can have some really bad experiences, right? But then he finished the sentence with, just sell yourself to me. And that set me off. I said to the guy, I said, mate, I'm not a salesperson. I said, I'm here to educate you and to help you. And if you want me to create a financial strategy. And I said, look, I have to be very, very honest with the way that you kind of come across. You and I aren't going to work well together. And I left the meeting. Basically, right? And I think that's also a thing, like you need to value in terms of even relationships and stuff, right? They say if you don't love yourself, then nobody else will love you. If you don't respect yourself, then no one else will respect you, right? And so it's one thing that I've basically learned, that not everyone's for you. And I'll be honest, I also had a client email into the other building the other day, and he emailed into my general manager, sends out a document request, and he goes, Stephen's strategy is absolutely fantastic. I think this could be really great for me and my family. However, I don't think Stephen and I are going to be a personality fit to work together.
That's interesting. Okay.
And he sent that basically in, right? Now, the typical person would probably react like, this guy's just a bloody idiot and he's an asshole and basically such and such. And I'm like, respect him from being he was honest. Like, I respect basically honesty. And so what did I do? I had probably my most relaxed person in the business reach out to him and give him a phone call. Do you think he's working with us now?
100%. Yeah.
Because we treat it basically in the right way. There's a difference between that guy and what I've talked about essentially, right? Like if you think you basically know it all, then don't come to basically work with Stephen Watson and his basically team, right? You should be coming to us because you want to extract knowledge out of us. Now, before we can obviously give you that knowledge, we need to basically verify at the end of the day. I'm not going to spend an hour to go into a full financial strategy if I know it's not suitable for you. That's just, potentially getting that person's hopes up based on the whole meeting and bringing them up here. Then you have to drag them essentially down there at the end of the day, right? And so, yes, quickly circling back, like I encourage particularly the people that are in their 50s, because as you can imagine, when do people start thinking about my stuff is when they get older, right? And they realize I shouldn't have a mortgage right now. I haven't got enough money for basic retirement. I need help. So we get a lot of people basically in their 50s. And I love working with those people because they get it and they're super motivated to basically make a change. Sometimes you need to go through a bit of pain to realize what you actually need to do, right? Some of the younger people that I speak to, they haven't felt that pain yet. They haven't watched their loan balance just slowly reduce. They've only had their mortgage for a year. That's not enough pain. Sometimes you need to feel the pain to essentially take action, right?
You need 10 years of no principal going.
Exactly. And having that mortgage broker come back and refinance them back to 30 years, and they don't know basically any better, right? And so I kind of say to those people, we can't afford for this to go wrong. We get these property transactions wrong. You go out and buy a bad property without professional advice, because you can bring me properties and I'll give you a rough idea, but I'm not going to tell you to buy a property. I'm not a real estate agent, right? I'm not going to put my license, my basically family and the rest of my staff on the line to basically tell someone that I can eventually get sued for at the end of the day, right? do help people obviously within reason as much as I can. And what I generally say to people is when it comes to property, you got two things that matter: land and location. Do they make more land? No, they don't. Location? Everyone wants to be close to work and good infrastructure and good restaurants and all that type of stuff, right?
100%.
So that's the investment criteria that I've followed in my life that's been very successful.
Yeah.
And so what does that automatically rule out? Villa units,
Yeah.
townhouses,
Yeah.
apartments,
Yeah.
and a lot of regional basically locations, which is generally where people lost their ass in Australia previously. Look at Port Hedland in WA as an example, all that mining stuff where people bought properties for 800,000 and in like 6 months, once they moved the mine, they went down to like 400,000, right?
Yeah.
You know, like not enough due diligence was basically done. And so that's where a good buyer's agent comes in, right?
100%.
And again, when you look at the buyer's agent's fee and you add that into the loan, it's like maybe $70 to $100 per month.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to buy an asset for $700,000 and you can't see the value, that barely affects the cost base of the property, right?
Yeah, literally.
But at least you can go to sleep at night saying, I've engaged professional expertise to actually make sure I've made the right decision.
Yeah.
And in particular, I will push it more on the people that have made mistakes. So these people, like that lady I just mentioned over in WA that have gone to these investment seminars, I will insist on her to basically go to a buyer's agent because they're basically shown me, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way, that their own decisions basically can't be trusted and they basically need that guidance. Some people just don't have the ability to think logically on these things and they get scammed by these good salespeople. That's essentially what it comes down to.
I think they're very trusting as well. A lot of people are obviously very trusting. And because, as you said, they don't have the education to actually be able to like think about it holistically. So they trust what people say and they do that, which is, it's pretty bad to prey on, you know, those kinds of people. It's actually kind of the lowest kind of human that you can be.
I always say, like, to my wife, like, Isabella, I couldn't go to sleep at night knowing that I took a $50,000 commission on some people. James, with the volume that I do, if I did that, you would know, like, out of anyone, how much money I would basically make.
Yeah.
Like, guys, we are talking like I'd maybe make another, and this isn't a year, like another few million a month, basically. And that would all be these commissions. There's no cost against them, right? It'd be basically pure profit. But to know you put someone into where they don't have a good chance at making money, you're not. That's not being a human being at the end of the day.
Also, the business won't last. You'll do it for 12 months and you'll be done.
No.
Yeah.
But I could potentially come in and out, James, and basically have everything paid off and be retired. And
that's what they do.
And that's what these guys do and sail off into the sunset.
Yeah.
What kind of person are you, right?
Yeah.
My dad basically said to me basically early on, you get one name, you get one reputation, right? Never going to get another one, right? Unless you move to another country like, you know, Pablo Escobar type of stuff, essentially, right? So yeah, it's one thing that I'm really proud of with Lending Loop is that we do this ethically, right? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, is this strategy right for everyone? No, basically, right? But I think compared to what the baseline people doing, that it's a bloody good strategy, right? 100%. And the people that want to engage with it will, and the people that don't, they don't obviously have to at the end of the day, right? 100%. And as I say, I try to structure the way in a transparent area where, you know, I could easily put a $5,000 fee up front, right, James? As you know, and probably a lot of people would pay it at the end of the day, right? But it doesn't sit right with me basically taking off money off people when you essentially don't.
It hasn't happened yet.
When it basically hasn't happened at the end of the day, right? And I also don't want to cut down from the audience that essentially comes to us because there are some people that are very suitable that don't have that type of cash essentially in the bank, right? I got this one lady, she's bought her property yesterday. As you can imagine, I'm always saying yesterday because like I don't think anyone quite realized how many times my phone is vibrated in my pants while I've basically been sitting here. But yeah, she bought a property on the Gold Coast, some really good kind of investment property, and we're still waiting for her refinance to be completed. So she's got the deposit money and everything. Yeah. She's gone and bought so fast that before the refinance has happened, it's actually a great dual income property. She's found an absolute basically cracker off market through a local basically real estate agent. I'd actually buy this particular property myself, and she's literally going to spend 10 grand on property, put up one wall, and she's made a dual income property. So bloody smart by her. And yeah, she's single and just pay the deposit of 15 grand. She doesn't have 15 grand, right? Because she's literally just been going on her mortgage on the minimum. So again, what are we doing basically? That situation is we obviously expedite her. Hopefully a refinance happens essentially in the next couple of days. So I don't want to miss out on basically helping people like her, right? And I'm a big believer that there's enough money for everyone to make in the right way, right? Banks obviously going to continue to make their profits. Clients are obviously got to come ahead. And then we've obviously I've got to generate revenue to obviously pay the staff, pay the costs, and obviously make a living that makes me worth it to work 16, 17 hours, obviously, a day, right?
100%.
I mean, we're sitting here on a Friday afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that I will stop working once it's a beautiful day here in Sydney?
It's a good day.
It's a bloody good day here in Sydney. But do you think I'll be able to stop basically working today?
Oh, it hasn't even started.
Probably, yeah, exactly. Like, it wouldn't sit right with me. There's all the phone calls I miss. I'm not returning those people's phone calls. So if you're going to basically charge people a premium price, you got to deliver a premium service at the end of the day, right? And I know from time to time, you and I both have our staff challenges, right? And you're never going to find anyone that's obviously going to do it obviously the same as you, right? And all you can continue to do is ingrain obviously that culture, basically, right? Lead obviously from the front, obviously, on a lot of these things. And you know, it's probably where I got into the most trouble working in corporate and the most trouble I've had running my own business. And I'll still fully never logically realizing in my mind is that no one's going to be me.
Yeah.
Because if they were me or you, James,
They'd be in your position.
Sitting here basically talking and running their own basically business. It's same as what
100%.
we spoke about, that private banker at NAB that we spoke about, right?
100%.
That private banker at NAB is they're not going to sit there and watch the podcast at 11 o'clock and talk to accountants about basically corporate structuring and all these different things at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's essentially what it takes. So yeah, we're on a mission, want to change as many lives as possible through what we're doing at the moment.